Lee Hyun-seok, a hero who had spent 2 decades on a distant world, found himself on the precipice of his long-awaited return. Today was the day he would finally defeat the monstrous demon, fulfilling his arduous mission. With this final act, he would save the world from its impending doom. A surge of power erupted from him, a brilliant burst of light and heat. The air crackled with raw energy as the hero faced his ultimate foe. The monster, a hulking beast with glowing red eyes, seemed surprised by his resilience. Its voice, a guttural growl, acknowledged the hero's enduring strength, a testament to his title. Around him, his companions, a saintess, a mage, and a knight struggled, their faces etched with exhaustion. Our boy, Lee Hyun-seok, appeared equally worn, his body scarred but his resolve unbroken. The hero launched himself forward, spear piercing through the monster's defenses with incredible speed. His allies, though injured, managed to erect a shimmering blue barrier, protecting themselves from the monster's retaliation. The beast roared in fury, a wave of dark purple energy radiating from its massive form. It declared its dominion over the land, threatening to tear the hero to pieces if he refused to submit. Yet, our hero remained steadfast, his stance firm against the overwhelming power. He glared back, his eyes burning with a fierce determination, ready to deliver the final blow. A massive explosion of purple light erupted as the monster unleashed another devastating attack. With a grunt, our hero tightened his grip on the spear, bracing for the impact. He channeled his inner strength, flames flickering around him as he prepared his own unique ability. With a final explosive thrust, he unleashed the full force of his power. The impact was blinding, a pure white light consuming everything in its path. More bright energy expanded, tearing through the very fabric of the battlefield. This was his ultimate weapon, the Paradox Flame, a power unlike any other. He pressed his assault, a relentless barrage of fiery strikes against the wounded beast. Every step he took resonated with the immense power flowing through him, leaving craters in the earth. The monster's eye widened in shock, unable to comprehend the force it was facing. Even amidst his own pain, our hero pushed through, unleashing a powerful scream. The ground beneath the monster shattered, fragments of rock and debris flying outwards from the sheer impact. It was a relentless assault, pushing the colossal beast further and further into submission. Our hero continued his fierce attack, not giving the monster a single moment to recover. The monster's hand, once invincible, now showed signs of deep wounds, its flesh torn. With a precise strike, he drove his spear deep into the monster's body. A sickening sound echoed across the desolate landscape, confirming the grave injury. The monster reeled, groaning in pain as the hero continued to apply pressure. It was an unbearable agony, a pain that even the ancient monster could not withstand. Our boy's hand glowed with residual energy, a testament to the power he had just wielded. He explained that his attack was far from soft. It was more than enough to dismantle the monster's arrogance. The monster's form began to warp and dissolve, a dark energy seeping from its wounds. It uttered its disbelief, recognizing a human capable of such power. Our hero corrected him, stating clearly that he was not from this world. The monster, still defiant, dismissed his words as nonsense even in its final moments. Our boy remained calm, knowing that the monster's fate was sealed. The monster then realized the true nature of the attack, its eyes wide with fear. It questioned if it was truly being erased, its existence fading away. Our hero confirmed it, pointing out the monster's inability to regenerate. The dark red flame consumed the monster, a relentless inferno of destruction. He explained that this black flame, his special ability, was called the Paradox Flame. Unlike ordinary flames that needed oxygen, this fire consumed abstract concepts like ego, reason, and memories. He stated that the monster's centuries-long hobby of resurrecting itself was now over. The monster understood the horrifying truth. Its very existence was being devoured. The monster slowly crumbled, its form disintegrating into nothingness. It wondered if this truly meant the end of its time in this world. Yet, even if it was erased, the monster reminded our hero that he too would not be remembered as a savior. He revealed the shocking truth. His supposed companions were simply waiting for him to die here. Our hero, with a calm expression, responded with a simple yet profound statement. He simply said, "I know." The saintess, hearing this, immediately denied it, urging our hero not to believe the monster's words. He started with her, explaining how she, despite claiming love, actually despised him as an outsider. Her seductive attempts were all part of a calculated plan. This was so he would hesitate to attack her when the time came to purge him after the monster's defeat. Our hero then directly asked the saintess if he was wrong, leaving her speechless. He turned his attention to the other two, stating that they were no different. The knight, in his ambition, had received a national treasure from the emperor to eliminate him. The cowardly emperor feared our boy would take his throne, making a petty move to ensure his demise. The mage, who indulged in human experimentation, hated him simply because he opposed the slavery system. Our hero calmly stated that he had known about their intentions for the past 5 years. The monster, still partially visible, expressed its confusion, unable to understand his actions. With the power he wielded, he could have easily destroyed this world that had turned against him. Our boy simply replied that he hadn't done that because he wanted to go home. This was his true motivation, his sole desire after 2 decades of hardship. We then flash back to Earth, 20 years prior, in the year 2005. Lee Hyun-seok was just an ordinary 30-year-old office worker. Until a being called a goddess transported him to another world, tasking him with saving it. Tales of an ordinary person succeeding in another world were common, but his reality was far from it. The world he arrived in was not a magical paradise, but a complete and utter disaster. People cried out for salvation, trapped in a nightmare of monsters and destruction. This alternate realm was a disaster in itself, a constant struggle for survival. He tried every method to return to Earth, but there was only one path: defeat the monsters and save this world. And so, for 20 long years, he trained relentlessly, honing his skills to fight the monstrous threats. He rescued a child from a ravaged village, hoping to find some humanity within the people. Yet, the villagers were cold, commenting that the child was about to die and should have been left behind. They considered medicine wasted on the wounded, a stark display of their cruel nature. The medieval level of medicine and hygiene was appalling. A simple infection led to amputation. All the healers were mobilized for battle, leaving no one to treat the wounded. But something even more horrifying than the lack of care was the extreme brutality. Our boy came to realize that this world was truly a terrible place. He had finally defeated the monster, saving this world from its torment. He looked at his spear, a heavy sigh escaping him, feeling a sense of finality. He admitted his relief that his companion's betrayal had been exposed. He knew they couldn't let him live now that the monster was gone. Our boy confessed his profound hatred for this world. He was critically injured, barely able to move, let alone fight back against his former allies. He had completed his mission, and now he demanded the goddess keep her promise. A radiant light descended from the heavens, signaling the goddess's arrival. She appeared before him, praising his endurance and efforts. He reminded her of their agreement. His soul, memories, and experiences would be perfectly preserved. And then she would send him back to Earth, his true home. The goddess questioned his choice, asking if he truly disliked this world, even with the power he now possessed. He knew she was relieved he was leaving, as this world no longer needed a monster like him. She asked if he would truly have no regrets about leaving all his achievements behind. Our boy simply dropped his spear, his body glowing brightly as he ascended. He was finally leaving this god-forsaken otherworld, his long journey seemingly at an end. Our protagonist, a man who had just returned from another world, was finally enjoying the simple luxury of hot water, a comfort he hadn't known in ages. He stood by the window, gazing at the clear, bright sky, taking in the peaceful cityscape of his home, feeling a sense of profound relief. This was it, he thought. A world nothing like the nasty, brutal place he had just escaped. A world where he could simply relax and play StarCraft. But then, a sudden, sharp jolt of alarm ran through him, cutting through his momentary peace with an unsettling dread he knew all too well. A chilling voice echoed through the apartment complex, announcing something horrifying, leaving him bewildered and asking, "What is this?" An urgent announcement blared for all residents, ordering immediate evacuation due to a corrosion rift appearing within the complex. The news hit him hard, his face twisting in disbelief as he processed the terrifying words. A corrosion rift? What the hell is that? His eyes narrowed. A flicker of the battle-hardened warrior from the other world momentarily replacing the relieved man who had just returned home. Then they appeared, grotesque figures with horrifying, grinning masks emerging from the red-tinged rift, confirming his worst fears. He ran, a familiar panic gripping him as the monstrous creatures gave chase, forcing him to flee through the hallways of his own home. Desperate to escape, he smashed through a window, scrambling out into the open air as the creatures pursued him relentlessly. The monsters, surprisingly agile, scaled the walls and poured into the stairwell, their numbers growing, trapping him in a nightmare. He looked back at the clear sky through the broken window, a stark contrast to the terror unfolding around him as the monsters continued their relentless pursuit. With no other choice, he leaped from the window, abandoning the building that was no longer safe, landing hard but alive. Breathless and shaken, he finally lost the monsters, catching his breath in a moment of fragile reprieve, hoping the danger had passed. As he gathered himself, he spotted a small child, a young boy holding a staff, seemingly unfazed by the chaos and looking for something. The boy, Sok, asked if he'd seen where the monster went, then casually mentioned that corrosion rifts were even older than him, speaking of a world our protagonist didn't recognize. He stared at the monstrous creature in the distance, a familiar sense of despair washing over him as the reality of his return sank in. He clenched his teeth, a raw scream of frustration echoing in his mind. He had endured a living hell to come back to Earth, only to find it had become a hellhole too. Sok, oblivious to the man's inner turmoil, prattled on about something he'd seen on YouTube, a world full of information our protagonist was completely cut off from. The boy continued, excitedly naming a famous hunter, Lee Se-eon, clearly a hero in this new, monster-infested version of Earth. Our protagonist skillfully changed the subject, redirecting Seok's endless chatter, while still grappling with the shocking truth of his home. He pondered how normal humans could fight such monsters, a question that resonated deeply, reminding him of the other world he thought he'd left behind. As Sok kept talking, our protagonist instinctively covered the boy's mouth, silencing him as he sensed the new, immediate threat. He peeked around the corner, his expression grim, the small boy clinging to him as they both hid from unseen dangers. More monsters appeared, their eerie, masked faces filling the hallway, confirming his suspicions and raising the stakes. His eyes scanned the room, quickly assessing the threat, noting the exact number of creatures before him, a familiar instinct taking over. He looked at the crying child, a wave of concern washing over him. If he left Seok alone, something terrible would surely happen. Without a proper weapon, he wondered how he was supposed to fight. A critical dilemma in a world suddenly overrun by monsters. Then, a faint blue glow enveloped him, a sensation he recognized from his past life, indicating the presence of mana in the air. A flicker of hope ignited in his eyes, a realization that changed everything. If there was mana, he still had a chance. One of the monsters reacted violently, a crackling sound accompanying the emergence of a dark, malevolent energy from its body. With a surge of renewed power, he unleashed his paradox flame, a blast of purple energy incinerating the monster with a horrifying shriek. The blue flames danced around him, a stark display of power that left Sok staring in wide-eyed amazement. Our protagonist allowed himself a small, confident smile, a brief moment of satisfaction after dispatching the immediate threat. The powerful purple flames dissipated, leaving behind only the charred remains of the monster, a testament to his unique skill. Seok, absolutely thrilled, looked up at him with sparkling eyes, exclaiming how amazing he was and praising his unique skill. The boy then eagerly ran towards the monster's remains, declaring the importance of confirming the kill, prompting the protagonist to yell for him to wait. His eyes focused, the flames of the paradox flame, still a potent force within him, ready for whatever came next. He watched the monster's remains smolder, a grim reminder of the violence that had become commonplace. He turned to Seok, his tone firm, using the nickname Kiddo, as he began to lay down some rules. With a touch, he confirmed the monster was truly defeated, the stench of its burning flesh a grim reality. He calmly advised Seok to stop watching such things, pulling the boy away from the gruesome scene. Then, he reached for the staff Sok was holding, needing a proper weapon for the battles ahead. His eyes burned with a fierce determination as he gripped the staff, transforming it into an extension of his will. He swung the staff with incredible speed, a blur of motion as he struck down another approaching monster. Each strike was precise and powerful, a testament to his combat experience, as he quickly dispatched the remaining threats. Yoon Seok watched in utter astonishment, his mouth agape, completely captivated by the man's incredible strength and skill. Standing over the defeated monsters, our protagonist was met with Yoon Seok's awestruck question, "Mister, are you secretly a hunter?" As they walked, the man reflected on the grim familiarity of it all, noting how the local terminology for children had changed, but the underlying harshness of the world had not. Suddenly, a woman appeared, calling out Yoon Song's name, her face etched with a mixture of fear and relief. She rushed to Yoon Seok, pulling him into a tight embrace, profusely thanking our protagonist for keeping her son safe. He noticed her expensive earrings and designer clothes, realizing Yoon Seok was a rich young master, which explained a few things about the boy's demeanor. His moment of contemplation was abruptly shattered as a massive, dark creature burst through the wall behind them. The monster's powerful punch tore through the solid concrete, sending debris flying and shaking the entire structure. The outer wall of the shelter crumbled, revealing the terrifying beast to the terrified onlookers, chaos erupting all around them. The monster let out a guttural, terrifying shriek, its gaping maw filled with razor-sharp teeth, signaling an even greater danger. Panic seized the crowd as people screamed and ran in every direction, desperate to escape the encroaching horror. Yoon Seok frantically pulled at our protagonist, urging him to run, a desperate plea in the face of overwhelming odds. Our protagonist stood frozen for a moment, his face a mask of frustration and weariness, thinking of his simple wish to return to a normal world. He looked at the monstrous threat, questioning if his desire for a peaceful life, to simply return to the world he knew, was truly asking for too much. Yoon Seok, however, remained resolute, his young face hardened by determination, unwilling to give up. Our protagonist listened as the boy explained his motivations, a story that would reshape his own perspective. Yoon Seok revealed that his father had died to a monster, even in an underground bunker they thought was safe. The boy declared his unwavering resolve to become the strongest hunter, to rid the world of all corrosion rifts, and save it. Our protagonist, touched by the boy's conviction, offered a small, knowing smile, acknowledging the boy's grand ambition. Yoon Seok's mother intervened, pulling her son away, insisting it was time to go, trying to shield him from further danger. But Yoon Seok resisted, reaching out, his eyes fixed on our protagonist, a silent plea for him to stay. The boy's face was a picture of fierce resolve, his youthful determination shining through the fear. Our protagonist turned, a faint purple aura beginning to emanate from his body, his decision made. He began to walk forward, the subtle glow around him intensifying, signaling his readiness to face the new threat. He looked at the boy, a calm certainty in his eyes as he stated, saving the world was a job for someone who had already done it before, a competent declaration that promised a future far beyond what anyone expected. Yuchan Seok, a man who once saved another world, found himself back on Earth, immediately facing a new threat. He had spent 20 years fighting monsters in that other realm, only to return home and be confronted by a corrosion rift, making him promise a child he would save their world. Fortunately, he survived the rift by drawing on his past experience, but he felt he had done nothing of real significance. He had won, of course, but it had been too easy, almost anticlimactic. People said someone who saved the world once could save it again, but he just sat there, casually enjoying a treat. He had spoken with such confidence about saving the world, yet that desire quickly faded. Earth offered games and abundant food, luxuries he could only dream of in the other world. He enjoyed the simple pleasures he had missed, and the convenient system that allowed him to do anything with a touch. Besides, when it came to saving the world, there were already plenty of hunters for that. He considered just ordering some delivery, settling into a quiet life. But then he checked his phone and saw his remaining balance. He was shocked. He had already spent all his severance pay. The original body's owner, also named Yuchan Seok, had been an employee at a logistics company. That company went bankrupt due to a corrosion rift, leaving him jobless. Now, with his own severance pay gone, our boy had tried to find a new job. But getting a normal job was impossible in this new reality. Because of the constantly appearing corrosion rifts, most companies were going out of business. He needed a job to survive in modern society, but what was he supposed to do? He then saw something interesting on his phone, a hunter recruitment advertisement. A realization hit him. He did have experience in that line of work. Perhaps becoming a hunter was the answer to his current predicament. The Hunter Association was a bustling place, filled with many eager applicants. Many remarked that the selection test had become just a formality. These days, people were chosen simply by showing off a unique skill. Looking at the other candidates, he found them all to be the same. He saw them as just a bunch of small fries, unimpressive. He wondered if they were all going to become famous. He remained unimpressed by the caliber of the aspiring hunters around him. Then, the atmosphere in the room shifted, a murmur spreading through the crowd. Everyone was buzzing about the arrival of Lee Se-yoon from Janabi Guild. She was a partner hunter affiliated with Janabi Guild, ranked 10th in the world. Many were surprised to see her, as they thought she was away subjugating a corrosion rift in Cheorwan. They wondered if the Janabi Guild had sent someone to scout in person. The question hung in the air, who could she possibly be there for? Some mentioned Han Sang-ah, a Hunter Academy graduate whose awakened ability was electrokinesis. One man jokingly asked if she could charge batteries with her skill. His companion quickly corrected him, pointing out that Sang-ah was a hunter candidate, not a power generator. They said Sang-ah was quite skilled with her ability and would surely be useful. Lee Se-yoon, however, watched with a subtle, dismissive look. She knew that hunting in corrosion rifts was real combat, far different from academy training. Even if students excelled at the academy, many failed to achieve great results in actual combat. She offered candy to her companion, making a point. Practice and real combat were completely different things. It was difficult for academy students, who had only ever had safe training, to endure the real thing. It would take a long time for Han Sang-ah to adapt to true battle. Lee Se-yoon accepted the task she had been given, her eyes sharp. She aimed to raise someone's value enough to make her want to take them. Soon, it was time for the first match, and candidate Yu Chan-sok was called to the stage. He was still not used to the new name, a small detail in his grand plan. The rules of the match were announced. Personal weapons, other than those provided by the association, were not allowed. And inflicting life-threatening injuries was strictly prohibited. He decided that since he had chosen to become a hunter, the first thing he needed to do was save this world. Simultaneously, he knew he had to live well and eat well. To achieve that, he understood he needed to get good results in this tournament. Both candidates were called to their positions on the stage. His opponent, the undefeated Spearmaster of the Hunter Academy, laughed mockingly. He taunted our boy, saying he couldn't even gather mana. The Spearmaster lunged, his fiery spear gleaming. He proudly declared himself the undefeated Spearmaster, after all. But Chan Seok moved with blinding speed, a mere blur. His opponent cried out in shock, wondering what had happened. He had vanished from the Spearmaster's sight. Chan Seok reappeared behind him, calmly remarking that he was pretty clumsy with that spear. He delivered a swift, powerful blow. The Spearmaster was instantly defeated, collapsing to the ground. He was utterly stunned, asking if it was already over. Chan Seok explained he had used his bare hands because he thought a spear would hurt him too badly. Lee Se-yoon watched, her expression unreadable, a flicker of interest in her eyes. She thought he was like a beginner, yet his performance was shocking. This level of skill was certainly not average for hunters. She quickly pulled up his profile, noting his previous job as a logistics company employee. She saw that he had almost no mana accumulated in his body. She concluded that if that was true, his result must have been pure luck. She popped the candy into her mouth, dismissing the idea that he was intentionally not accumulating mana. She found such a notion utterly impossible. Chan Seok scratched his neck, the situation feeling a bit uncomfortable. He decided he should finish this decisively to prove his abilities. Yu Chan-sok, an unexpected contender in a high-stakes tournament, fought for his future. The intensity of the match was clear, with one competitor in the audience looking on with a mix of awe and concern. Our boy, Chan Seok, fought with everything he had, his weapon a simple staff, his face a mask of fierce concentration. He gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain, wondering how his opponent, a woman, possessed such immense strength. Lee Se-yoon, his adversary, moved with ruthless efficiency, her scythe-like blade a blur as she pressed her attack. The arena itself seemed to amplify the chaos as Se-yoon executed a powerful kick, sending Chan Seok reeling across the floor. Se-yoon observed him, a faint smirk playing on her lips, noting that his speed had noticeably declined since the start. Chan Seok gasped for air, sweat beading on his brow, realizing it wasn't a lack of openings, but his body's inability to seize them. She approached him with an air of casual superiority, asking if he was already exhausted, despite her hopes for a good warm-up. With a decisive move, Se-yoon prepared to end the match, her weapon glowing with a menacing light. Chan Seok collapsed, utterly spent, his body screaming for rest after enduring her relentless assault for so long. But then, his eyes blazed with a new resolve as he declared his ultimate technique, Paradox Flame. Se-yoon's eye widened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing her face at the sudden shift in his demeanor. He retaliated with a swift kick, catching her off guard and sending her stumbling backward amidst debris. The force of his counterattack propelled Se-yoon through the air, a testament to the unexpected power he had just unleashed. She landed, regaining her balance, and questioned how he had managed to dodge her previous strike with such force. Chan Seok stood, now wreathed in an aura of black and purple flames, a mysterious energy that emanated from his very being. This strange, dark flame danced around him, unlike any ordinary fire, hinting at a power beyond conventional understanding. He held his staff with renewed vigor, the dark flames clinging to his form, transforming him into a formidable opponent once more. Se-yoon narrowed her eyes, her previous smirk replaced by a look of intense focus as she assessed his new state. Chan Seok launched another attack, his movements infused with the purple energy, striking swiftly and powerfully. Her mouth curved into a subtle, almost imperceptible smile, intrigued by the unexpected turn of events. Se-yoon pondered the fluctuating mana in the air, a peculiar effect of his power, wondering if the arena settings were compromised. Chan Seok looked up, the dark aura swirling around him, a new determination etched on his face. He explained that his specialty, the paradox flame, burned abstract concepts, not matter, making it a unique kind of power. With a decisive step, he prepared for the next phase of their battle, the ground beneath him cracking slightly. Se-yoon moved in for another strike, her figure shrouded in a dark cloak, aiming for a quick finish. Her scythe connected, creating a powerful impact, yet Chan Seok remained standing, seemingly unaffected by the blow. He smiled, a genuine, almost unsettling grin, declaring that he could still keep fighting despite her efforts. Se-yoon's expression hardened, a deep-seated annoyance surfacing as she admitted her absolute hatred for men who refused to give up. She stood over him, her weapon planted firmly, asking if he truly wished to continue their grueling match. Chan Seok, lying on the ground, accepted a lollipop, a sweet gesture after such a brutal contest. The men in the audience, who had been intently watching the fight, reacted with comical surprise at the sight of the lollipop. Se-yoon, with a friendly smile, handed him the candy along with her business card, a surprising offer. The card bore her name, Lee Se-yoon, and her contact information, hinting at a new opportunity. She gave him a playful wink, instructing him to call her, leaving him to ponder her intentions. Chan Seok bit into the lollipop, the sweetness a stark contrast to the battle he had just endured. Later, holding his new Hunter smartphone, he scrolled through its features, marveling at the advanced technology. His attention was suddenly drawn upwards, a look of mild surprise on his face. A towering, muscular man named Yoon Song-hyun approached him, exuding a powerful, intimidating presence. Chan Seok, slightly taken aback, asked the imposing stranger who he was. The man presented his business card, revealing himself as Yoon Song-hyun, a partner hunter from Taebai LLC. Yoon Song-hyun, with a wide, confident smile, invited Chan Seok to join his team at the Taebai Guild. Chan Seok glanced at Se-yoon's contact information, weighing his options between the two unexpected offers. He tucked the card away, deciding to think about the offer before committing to anything. Yoon Song-hyung chuckled, accepting his decision to consider, but with an underlying intensity in his gaze. He placed a hand on Chan Seok's shoulder, a gesture that felt less like camaraderie and more like a subtle assertion of dominance. The man leaned in close, whispering a final, pointed piece of advice, his smile never faltering. Chan Seok reacted with a look of wide-eyed surprise, clearly unsettled by the whispered words. He later dismissed the idea of joining Taeyabek, finding the man's approach rather off-putting. Soon after, he called Lee Se-yoon, who confirmed her identity, and he asked where they should meet. Se-yoon, cheerful and welcoming, greeted him at The Hut, a cafe located on the second floor of the Hunter Association building. Chan Seok entered the bustling cafe, the atmosphere bright and inviting, a stark contrast to the arena. He settled into his seat and recounted his encounter with the really huge guy who had tried to recruit him. Se-yoon, recognizing the description, nodded knowingly at the mention of Yoon Se-yoon of Taeyabek. Chan Seok, surprised by her familiarity, questioned if her organization, Janabi, would also be interested in recruiting him. She promptly clarified that she had no intention of recruiting him, leaving him stunned and confused. He pondered her statement, wondering why she had called him then, if not for recruitment. Se-yoon, understanding his confusion, began explaining the Hunter Guild structure, noting his lack of academy background. She held up her fingers, illustrating the 3 common ranks within a guild: junior, senior, and partner. She explained that guilds operated much like a law firm, with different levels of affiliation and responsibility. Se-yoon clarified that one didn't necessarily need to climb through the junior and senior ranks to become a partner hunter. Chan Seok quickly grasped the implication. If he achieved significant results, guilds would naturally seek him out. She offered him another piece of candy, a gesture he found peculiar, still wondering about her true motives. He acknowledged his current disadvantage, lacking connections and experience, which would make securing good requests difficult. Se-yoon, with a reassuring smile, offered to help him with that, and surprisingly, free of charge. Chan Seok, still bewildered by her generosity, couldn't understand why she would do so much for him. She revealed her long-term strategy to create goodwill for Janabi, hoping he would remember them when he became famous. Se-yoon then presented a new document, a mission request, and asked if he wished to examine it. Chan Seok took the document, his curiosity piqued by the sudden opportunity. The request detailed a mission from Incheon City, involving patrolling Gyeodongdo Island to eliminate additional corrosion rifts. He noted that the mission was set to begin in 1 month, giving him time to prepare. Chan Seok commented on the pay, finding it somewhat underwhelming for such a dangerous, life-threatening task. Se-yoon, undeterred, challenged him to get stronger and become famous if he felt the compensation was unfair. He looked at her, his expression a mix of contemplation and growing resolve. Taking a deep breath, Chan Seok prepared to give his answer to her unexpected proposition. Elsewhere, Se-yoon discussed Chan Seok with her team, noting his civilian status and bare-handed victory in the tournament. Her team members expressed their astonishment at his performance, even with her spoon-fed openings. Se-yoon herself reflected on his incredible endurance, admitting she had never encountered such a monster in her 10 years of hellish experience. One team member raised the concern, pointing out that the Gyeodongdo Island mission specifically required hunters with prior experience. The boss questioned if Chan Seok, despite his skills, could truly hold his own when teamed with veteran hunters. Se-yoon confidently reassured her boss, stating that she had paired him with someone exceptionally reliable. She smirked, a glint in her eyes, envisioning Chan Seok's potential if he ever reached her level of power. Chan Seok, now equipped and ready, began his journey towards Gyeodongdo Island, his figure resolute against the backdrop. His gaze was sharp, unwavering, as if he already saw the challenges ahead, ready to prove himself on this new path. Chan Seok was a man whose life revolved around a single intense pursuit, waiting patiently for a special delivery. The package was unusually heavy, prompting a moment of struggle for the delivery man. He checked the label, confirming it was indeed for apartment 56. Inside, Yu Chan-seok found a long, cylindrical package, something he had been anticipating for a while. A glint of determination shone in his eyes as he prepared to open it. This was the spear he would use, a formidable weapon he felt confident in. Among his tools was a glowing vial, the precious elixir he had acquired. Normally, hunters would draw mana from the atmosphere, purify it, and store it within themselves for later use. His method, however, was different. He absorbed mana directly from the air, bypassing the storage process entirely. This direct absorption meant there was no limit to the mana he could draw, as long as it was available in the air around him. Over time, this constant flow of mana through his body gradually strengthened his mana channels, allowing him to handle even greater amounts. The only drawback was that it took time for his channels to grow, which meant he couldn't always produce a strong output quickly. He knew that a month of training with this elixir would be enough to bring him to the level he needed. Soon, he found himself in a briefing room, listening intently as the mission details were laid out. Everyone around him seemed to carry a mix of nervousness and anticipation about what lay ahead. His name, Yu Chan-seok, was called out, drawing his attention to the speaker. A woman with short silver hair, Han Sang-ah, approached him, a friendly smile on her face. She suggested they work together, hoping to learn from his strength during the mission. He simply looked away, his expression unreadable, as she continued to observe him. Han Sang-ah playfully teased him about his hair, recalling an earlier, more chaotic encounter. He simply stated that his hair was normal now, attributing its previous wildness to static electricity. The group gathered for the mission briefing, a sense of gravity hanging in the air. They listened as the mission leader began to explain the terminology for the new hunters. Corrosion rifts were classified into categories, ranging from unclassified to the most dangerous Class 1. The first rift, known as the Alpha, was located at a church on Gyeodongdo Island, and though unclassified, it was expected to grow stronger. Two other hunters exchanged worried glances, clearly unnerved by the implications of the Alpha Rift. Chan-seok remained stoic, his gaze fixed on the briefing officer, absorbing every detail. He and Han Sang-ah disembarked from the boat, stepping onto the island where their mission would begin. The hunters huddled together, discussing the plan to scout the two designated areas over the next week. Two of the hunters, one with glasses, looked at each other with a hint of concern. Chan-seok held up his phone, displaying a map and pointing to a strategic location. One hunter, clearly unfamiliar with him, questioned if he was a rookie, given his youth. Chan-seok explained his reasoning for setting up base at Hwagyesa Temple, highlighting its strategic vantage points. The other hunters reacted with anger, particularly at the idea of climbing a mountain and potentially being surrounded. Chan-seok simply stared back, a blank expression masking his frustration at their illogical arguments. He, Min-jae, and Sang-ah moved away from the main group, choosing their own path. He glanced back at Kim Min-jae, surprised to find the other rookie following him. Kim Min-jae, a fire user, had a mana signature that was noticeably stronger than Han Sang-ah's. Chan-seok asked Min-jae why he chose to follow them, curiosity piqued by his unexpected decision. A flicker of surprise crossed Chan-seok's face as Min-jae explained his reasoning. He landed softly on the ground, having taken a moment to process Min-jae's words. Min-jae explained that he was worried about two rookies acting alone, a statement that caught both Chan-seok and Sang-ah off guard. Chan-seok quickly put a finger to his lips, signaling them to be quiet and take a peek over the nearby ridge. Min-jae cautiously peered over the ridge, his eyes widening at the sight before him. Below, a horde of grotesque corrosion creatures swarmed, far too many for a small group to handle. Min-jae gasped, realizing there were at least 50 of them, a truly overwhelming number. Chan-seok, calm amidst the chaos, asked Min-jae about his unique skill. His gaze was steady, assessing the situation and formulating a plan. Min-jae confirmed his skill was Flame, and his most confident ability was Fireball. Min-jae looked horrified, unable to believe Chan-seok was suggesting they fight such a large force. Min-jae argued that it was reckless, especially since it was his first mission. Chan-seok stated firmly that calling for help would be useless, the other hunters wouldn't arrive in time. He explained that unlike them, the other hunters were currently scattered along the coast, far from their position. Furthermore, if they waited, these creatures could scatter and become an even greater threat to the other teams. Even if a hunter was nearby, the earlier conflict might deter them from coming to their aid immediately. He quickly sketched out a plan, detailing a surprise attack to deal with the immediate threat. Min-jae looked on, still surprised by Chan Seok's decisive and detailed strategy. Chan Seok instructed Min-jae to launch a fireball at the center of the horde, while he would block the sides. Min-jae, though still hesitant, prepared to execute his part of the plan, jumping back to create space. Chan Seok leaped into action, his spear flashing as he moved to intercept the encroaching creatures. Han Sang-ah, seeing their resolve, drew her own blade, ready to contribute to the fight. Min-jae declared he was ready, a powerful fireball forming in his hands as Sang-ah prepared her strike. Chan Seok yelled for Min-jae to shoot, quickly moving out of the way of the impending blast. Min-jae unleashed his fireball, a blazing orb of destruction hurtling towards the creatures. The fireball exploded with immense force, incinerating a large portion of the horde. Chan Seok gripped his spear tightly, ready to finish off any creatures that survived the blast. His eyes burned with intense focus, betraying no emotion as he faced the remaining threats. He turned, surveying the aftermath of the attack, a sense of completion in his posture. Just as he thought the battle was over, he turned to Kim Min-jae, only to find the rookie aiming a gun directly at him. The unexpected betrayal hung heavy in the air, leaving Chan Seok stunned and the true intentions of his squadmate shrouded in mystery. Yu-chan Seok, a hunter with a brutal pragmatism, found himself on a perilous mission to save the world, a task that demanded more than just skill. Their initial sweep of the area seemed to conclude without much trouble, with everyone performing their duties as expected. Suddenly, one of the hunters, Kim Min-jae, pulled out a gun, pointing it at a team member and creating an immediate chilling tension. Chan Seok calmly asked him to step aside, later explaining their system for collecting monster byproducts. They were implanting microchips into fallen monsters, allowing junk dealers to collect the bulky remains after the mission. This process ensured they could profit from the valuable parts, as recovering everything themselves was too difficult. The junk dealers would appraise the tagged items, sell them, and split the profits with the hunter who implanted the chip. Chan Seok stressed the importance of finding a trustworthy dealer and establishing a solid contract for this system. His partner praised Chan Seok, marveling that the three of them had handled 50 monsters, a feat he never thought possible. A sudden, ominous sound shattered their relief, and the hunters immediately sensed a new, dangerous presence. Before them emerged a monstrous creature far larger and more terrifying than any foe they had just faced. The air grew heavy with dread as the true nature of their new foe began to reveal itself. This formidable entity was clearly some kind of mid-boss, a significant threat demanding their full attention. Chan Seok cursed under his breath, quickly deducing that this creature was likely the leader of the corrupted beings. The monster let out a guttural roar, asserting its dominance, while Chan Seok noted the immense mana radiating from it. This creature operated on a completely different level than the weaker monsters, posing an overwhelming challenge. Chan Seok declared he would handle the boss alone, warning his teammates not to interfere, believing it was the only way for them to escape. He barked at his teammates to stop talking and get back, questioning if they wanted to go home in a body bag. Chan Seok insisted that it was better for him to confront this monster by himself, a decision born of grim necessity. With a swift, decisive motion, he readied his spear, preparing to unleash his full power against the formidable foe. He explained that fighting alone allowed him to use his paradox flame without worrying about harming his allies, ensuring a swift end to the battle. He then taunted the monster, calling it a bat bastard, initiating the brutal fight with a defiant challenge. From the sidelines, his companions watched, believing their leader was struggling, but another simply stated there was no need for concern. Despite the appearance of struggle, Chan Seok had not suffered a single hit, skillfully evading every one of the monster's attacks. He was not only dodging attacks that his companions would have struggled with, but also counter-attacking simultaneously, a true master of combat. Every time his spear connected with the monster, dark, ominous flames erupted, a terrifying display of his unique power. As the output of his dark flames increased, the monstrous mid-boss began to noticeably slow down, its movements becoming sluggish. What initially seemed like a desperate struggle had transformed into Chan Seok toying with the monster, effortlessly controlling the pace of the fight. His amazed companion questioned if Chan Seok was truly a rookie hunter, given his extraordinary combat prowess, wondering how it was even possible. Chan Seok moved with blinding speed, a whirlwind of motion against the now staggering beast. He delivered a powerful, decisive blow, signaling the imminent end of the fierce battle. With a final, resounding clang, Chan Seok put all his strength into one last critical strike. Then, in a shocking move, he hurled his spear directly at the monster, a projectile of raw power. His companions watched in disbelief, questioning if he had actually thrown his primary weapon. They cried out a warning to him, fearing for his safety as the monster still posed a threat. The spear struck its target with immense force, piercing the monster's defenses. The beast reeled, its monstrous form shaking violently from the impact of the powerful projectile. Finally, with a heavy thud, the mid-boss collapsed to the ground, defeated. Chan Seok observed the fallen monster, marveling that it could still move even after he had drained all its strength, knowing he had to finish it off for good. His companions stared, utterly stunned, their faces a mixture of relief and profound confusion at how quickly the monster was defeated. The other hunter, still processing the fight, tentatively asked Chan Seok if such a powerful monster was normal for Gyeodongdo Island. He admitted he had been wondering the same, noting that for an entity not even the core of a corrosion rift, it was unusually strong, possibly indicating a grade 3 rift. He reminded them that corrosion rifts were categorized into 4 tiers from grade 1 to unclassified. During their pre-mission briefing, they had been told the Alpha Rift on Gyeodongdo Island was unclassified, creating a stark contradiction. However, based on the monster's strength, Chan Seok concluded that the Alpha Corrosion Rift had likely escalated to grade 3. His companion realized with a jolt that the difference between an unclassified rift and a grade 3 one was like night and day, a terrifying escalation. If that assessment was true, then the number of hunters who would make it back alive from this mission would be horrifyingly close to 0, prompting him to plead for them to help others. Chan Seok rejected the plea, explaining that their primary mission was not to rescue endangered hunters, but to eliminate new corrosion rifts. He added that in their line of work, it was unrealistic to expect every single person to survive and return home. The other hunter then turned the question on him, asking what he would do if he found himself in such a desperate situation. He pressed further, suggesting that anyone in that position would feel resentment and beg for salvation, implying Chan Seok should feel compassion and help. Chan Seok clarified that his stance wasn't due to a lack of understanding for those emotions, but rather a cold focus on the ultimate outcome. He asserted that in their harsh reality, some deaths were simply unavoidable and one must not be swayed by desperate circumstances to survive. The cold, stark reality of their dangerous mission permeated the very air around them, a constant reminder of their grim duty. Chan Seok felt a moment of relief as he confirmed that the building they were protecting was intact and free of corrupted beings. His companions reported that while it was too dark to see much, the scattered lights in the distance revealed other hunters' locations. Chan Seok immediately recognized the inherent danger of using lights, as it clearly revealed one's position to any lurking threats. He reasoned that if they were only dealing with weaker monsters, revealing their position wouldn't be an issue, but a mid-boss would make it fatal. He decided to send out a general warning message to all hunters, urging them to refrain from using lights recklessly due to the possible grade 3 rift. The dark, quiet expanse of the corrupted zone stretched before him, a silent testament to the danger that lay ahead. Chan Seok considered his next move, recalling that destroying the core of a corrosion rift would cause all corrupted beings to vanish. His companions confirmed this, explaining that without the rift's radiating energy, the entire corrupted zone would simply disappear. Chan Seok hummed thoughtfully, concluding that his task was simple. He just needed to find and destroy the corrosion rift itself. With a quiet resolve, he prepared to move, setting his sights on the ultimate objective while his companions rested. He was grateful that he had confirmed the exact location of the Alpha Corrosion Rift during the initial briefing. The path ahead seemed clear, promising a straightforward journey to his target, and he expected things to go smoothly. A sudden, high-pitched creak shattered the silence, an unsettling sound that immediately put him on guard. Chan Seok sighed, realizing he had just jinxed himself, knowing trouble was about to arrive. A deep, rumbling growl echoed through the darkness, confirming his suspicions as a new, formidable threat emerged. He recognized the monster's presence, a familiar foe, and muttered, "You again?" as he prepared for battle once more. The darkness around him pulsed with an unseen, menacing energy, signaling a profound shift in the environment. Then, a new monster emerged, its face unlike anything he had encountered before, filling him with a fresh sense of alarm. This terrifying creature, with its unknown visage, loomed large, a truly formidable and unexpected adversary. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent promise of the brutal confrontation that was about to unfold. This was only the beginning. The real storm hadn't hit yet. Yu Chanseok, a seasoned hunter, found himself in the midst of a grave situation, with alerts blaring across the Gyeodongdo Island Hunter Association. The Situation Room buzzed with frantic activity as staff reported dire losses, confirming hunters from Team 5 were now presumed dead. More grim news poured in, detailing how monsters were moving with unusual coordination, and Team 3 had already suffered a casualty. The manager, visibly shaken, shouted for answers, demanding to know what exactly was happening with this unclassified corrosion rift. With the emergency escalating, he ordered the activation of the contact network, sending out an urgent plea for all nearby hunters to assist. Just as the call went out, a staff member reported that someone was approaching the Alpha Corrosion Rift, a critical danger zone. The manager, utterly perplexed, demanded to know who would be so reckless as to head towards such a dangerous spot. The staff quickly identified the individual as Hunter Yu Chanseok from Team 8, a name that immediately caught the manager's attention. He was the first to spot the Corrosion Rift's upgrade, an unprecedented event that no one else had truly grasped. The manager, desperate for answers, ordered an immediate connection to our boy's terminal to confirm his survival. Chanseok was the only one who seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, heading directly into the upgraded rift. Suddenly, the connection was established, but what they heard next sent a jolt of terror through the room. It was Chanseok's voice, raw and urgent, screaming that the creatures were moving much faster than he had ever imagined. He cursed the association, furious that they had underestimated the danger of an unclassified rift, barely dodging an attack himself. Our boy raged, questioning if they even bothered to investigate properly, or if they simply didn't care since they weren't the ones fighting. He swore that if he made it back, he would personally carve a corrosion rift into each of their faces, his fury palpable. Despite his violent threats, the staff confirmed that Yu Chanseok was indeed alive, though clearly in a perilous battle. He reflected that his paradox flame, in its current state, simply wasn't strong enough to take down this formidable foe alone. To defeat such a powerful entity, he had to first chip away at its health using his flames, then finish it with his spear. But this beast was relentless, refusing to fall, its resilience proving a major obstacle. He realized he had drawn too much mana from Gyeodongdo Island earlier that day, leaving his power significantly weaker than usual. Since he couldn't leave the island, he desperately needed to find a place where he could draw more mana to replenish his strength. His eyes scanned the surroundings, searching for a suitable source to absorb energy from. And then he found it, a glowing, energy-rich spot amidst the desolate landscape. Mana surged into him, revitalizing his tired body and preparing him for the fight ahead. He absorbed the raw energy, feeling his power begin to return, a cold determination settling over him. Chanseok then called out to his shadowy companion, telling it to keep up, as there was something important he needed to check. His companion, a creature of the dark, seemed to understand, its form shifting in response. Back in the Situation Room, the manager received another worrying report. The GPS signal from Hunter Yu Chanseok had been lost. The manager's face paled, the fear of losing their last hope evident in his wide, tired eyes. Meanwhile, Chanseok had entered the Alpha Corrosion Rift, a place more dangerous than any hunter dared to imagine. He observed the interior, noting that it was surprisingly cleaner than he had anticipated, a strange calm before the storm. He remembered hearing that unclassified and Grade 3 corrosion rifts weren't usually this large, making him wonder about the higher grades. Our boy then turned to the monstrous creature before him, knowing that their long, tense relationship was about to conclude. He asked if they should finally put an end to their dynamic, a challenge in his voice. The massive beast roared, its intimidating presence filling the dark rift. Chan Seok coolly stated that he wasn't the clingy type, implying he was ready to sever their connection for good. He knew that one of the biggest problems with his paradox flame was its tendency to spread to every living being except himself. This meant that if his power reached a level he could no longer control, it would become unusable, a dangerous double-edged sword. However, if he fought alone, this drawback became negligible, almost as if it didn't exist at all. As he prepared for battle, a blue energy began to pulse around his chest, indicating a surge of mana. The mana he had absorbed from the island was now spreading throughout his entire body, strengthening his mana pathways. He felt his power growing, realizing that this method of absorption was far more efficient than he had ever thought possible. With renewed strength, he faced the monstrous creature, ready to unleash his full power. The beast lunged, a massive attack aimed directly at him, but he was ready. He countered with a powerful strike, his spear glowing with blue energy, the attack cutting through the air. Chan Seok activated his signature move, Dual Orbit Spear, a technique he had honed to perfection. A blue trajectory of light was generated, perfectly following the path of his initial attack. This trajectory then perfectly mimicked his first strike, repeating it 4 times in rapid succession. If he attacked simultaneously with the trajectory, it was a simple technique of 4 consecutive strikes. But our boy had a trick up his sleeve. What if the blue trajectory attacked a beat later than his physical strike? This created a tricky, 2-part spear round that was incredibly difficult for any opponent to dodge. Faced with this pincer attack, unfolding with a subtle time lag, his opponent would surely struggle. He knew it was bound to make a mistake, creating an opening for him to exploit. And just like he predicted, the beast faltered, giving him the chance he needed. He declared that the fight was over, his voice calm and confident as he delivered the final blow. The monster exploded in a flash of blue energy, leaving nothing but dust and shimmering particles behind. Chan Seok looked at the dissipating remnants, expecting the creature to simply vanish. But instead of disappearing, a small glowing box was left in its place, floating in the air. He reached out and caught it, his brow furrowed in confusion, wondering what this strange object could be. He opened the box, a small click echoing in the suddenly silent rift, revealing its contents. Back in the Situation Room, the corrupted zone was rapidly spreading from the center of Gyeodongdo Island. The manager screamed at his staff to guide the hunters properly, fearing they would all be wiped out. More bad news arrived. They had lost the signal from the hunters of Team 9, adding to the mounting casualties. Hunters who had responded to the reinforcement request were now encountering monsters, making landing on the island nearly impossible due to interference. The manager despaired, wondering if this was truly the end, if he was doomed to watch all the hunters perish. He questioned if he had any choice but to stand by and watch his forces be annihilated, his heart heavy with dread. Suddenly, a staff member exclaimed, announcing that a message had arrived from Hunter Yu Chan Seok. The manager jolted, his eyes wide with a mix of shock and desperate hope, demanding to know what the message said. The message was broadcast onto the main screen for all to see, a beacon of hope in the desperate hour. It calmly stated that the Alpha Corrosion Rift on Gyeodongdo Island had been taken care of, a stunning revelation. Simultaneously, the Alpha Corrosion Rift signal vanished, and the elimination of all corrosion creatures was confirmed. The manager stared at the screen, a single word escaping his lips. "It's a miracle," he finished, utterly stunned by the impossible feat. He couldn't comprehend how, after all the despair, such a victory had been achieved. Meanwhile, Chan Seok stood calmly in the now clear rift, simply stating that the air was nice. What happens next changes everything, and nobody sees it coming. The manager's hands shook, his eyes wide, as the impossible truth settled in. Yu Chan Seok was an emerging hunter who found himself in the midst of a desperate fight against an overwhelming swarm of corrupted beasts. His fellow hunter, Han Sang, pushed her limits, her face grim with blood and sweat as she fought tirelessly. Even as her hands trembled, she gripped her weapon tightly, the electric energy barely holding back the tide of monsters. Her resolve was unwavering, but the sheer numbers of the creatures were slowly chipping away at her strength. Her eyes, once filled with fierce determination, now reflected a growing despair as the battle raged on. Another hunter, Kim Min-jae, called out to her, his voice strained with exhaustion and fear. surrounded by the ruins of their world. They wondered if they would ever make it out of this nightmare alive. Both of them were clearly at their breaking point, gasping for breath as more creatures closed in. Min-jae's leg was torn and bleeding, a stark reminder of how close they were to succumbing. A terrifying corrupted beast lunged forward, its glowing eyes fixed on their vulnerable forms. Han-sung, desperately tried to parry its attack, the air crackling with her remaining power. But a new wave of shock washed over her face as she realized their dire situation. She was vastly outnumbered, fighting with every ounce of strength she had left against the relentless onslaught. Min-jae cried out her name, his voice filled with a raw, desperate fear as the monster closed in. His eyes widened in terror, knowing this might be the end for them both. Her own eyes reflected the same dread, anticipating the inevitable strike. Just as the monsters were about to deliver the final blow, a strange silence fell over the ravaged land. The corrupted creatures vanished as quickly as they appeared, leaving Han-sung, and Kim Min-jae collapsed on the ground, miraculously safe. Meanwhile, at the Godongdo Island Hunter Assembly Point, medical tents and ambulances stood ready for the injured. Two hunters discussed the recent rampage of corrosion creatures, noting the high number of injured people. It was then that Yu Chun-seok, looking calm and composed, arrived at the assembly point. He approached the two injured hunters, including the one who had just survived the creature attack. One of the hunters showed Chun-seok a text message, revealing that the Alpha Corrosion Rift on Gyeodongdo Island had been dealt with an hour ago. Chun-seok sat down casually with the injured hunters, acknowledging their surprise at his solo feat. A man in a sharp suit, Byeon Jong-tae, approached Chun-seok, formally addressing him as Hunter Yu Chun-seok. Byeon Jong-tae introduced himself as the third branch manager for the Northern Gyeonggi Incheon province from the Korea Operating Corporation. Chun-seok listened thoughtfully, his expression unreadable as the corporate manager spoke. As he walked away in the rain, Chun-seok pondered whether ordering people around was a common trait among older folks. He also considered the terms of his contract, noting that the bonus for clearing a Grade 3 corrosion rift was not specified. Chun-seok decided that since he was already there, he might as well negotiate the price for his services. Lee Pil-jae, the communications and liaison officer, greeted Chun-seok with a smile, stating it was a pleasure to meet him. Chun-seok and Pil-jae walked through the pristine halls of a corporate building, a stark contrast to the battlefields Chun-seok usually inhabited. Pil-jae explained that the mayor had been sincerely looking forward to this meeting with Chun-seok. He continued, mentioning that the report from Gyeodongdo Island had shocked the mayor that morning. Pil-jae added that the mayor had even cancelled his entire morning schedule to accommodate Chun-seok. Mayor Park Ji-yeon, a portly man with a wide smile, greeted Chun-seok from his office chair. Officer Lee Pil-jae was then asked to get some coffee for them, leaving the mayor and Chun-seok alone. The mayor expressed his gratitude, telling Chun-seok he had truly done a great service for their country. Chun-seok took a sip of his coffee as the mayor continued, explaining that Gyeodongdo Island had been a persistent problem for Incheon. Mayor Park stood up, animated, detailing how their limited budget made hiring an expensive guild difficult. Chun-seok, a bit taken aback by the mayor's sudden enthusiasm, wondered what was happening. The mayor then launched into a speech about Incheon's importance as a key region for Korea, boasting about its infrastructure and economic zones. Chun-seok listened with a thoughtful expression, understanding that the mayor was trying to impress him. He observed the mayor, his eyes sharp, as the man spoke of massive funds and transported goods. Later, in a car with Pil-jae, Chun-seok reflected on the mayor's initial statements about his first commission. He looked at his phone, recalling the mayor's words about him being a symbol of hope. Pil-jae continued to speak, driving home the point that many people would be watching Chun-seok with interest. The officer emphasized that Chun-seok should continue to be a symbol of hope for those in difficult situations. Pil-jae seemed genuinely concerned that Chun-seok might change due to fame, asking him to remain true to his duty. Chun-seok offered a subtle smile, listening to Pil-jae's earnest words. He remembered his own past, having suffered through countless hardships that had shaped his resolve. Back in the mayor's office, Chun-seok had articulated his purpose as a hunter to unclog the toilet when it spewed filth. The mayor's face had contorted in surprise at Chun-seok's blunt analogy. Mayor Park cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure, then acknowledged Chan Seok's well-informed status. He then brought up a document indicating that Chan Seok was quite knowledgeable about local politics. The mayor, a little flustered, admitted that his re-election was indeed facing difficulties. Chan Seok pointed out that for a rookie like him to participate in the commission, he needed the Incheon mayor's permission, a detail not mentioned in the public announcement. The mayor listened, realizing Chan Seok had seen through his initial attempts to take credit for Chan Seok's success. Mayor Park then presented a coffee mix brand, suggesting Chan Seok could replace their current model. Chan Seok picked up the coffee mix, considering the mayor's offer. The mayor, hopeful, believed Chan Seok could be the new face needed to change the dreary atmosphere. Chan Seok's expression remained serious, his thoughts clearly elsewhere than commercial endorsements. He countered that if he continued to work as a hunter, everything the mayor promised would naturally become his share anyway. The mayor, startled, then offered to provide Chan Seok with safe and high-paying commissions, which Chan Seok could select. Chan Seok stood up, dismissing the mayor's offer as uninteresting, suggesting he just congratulate the current coffee mix model instead. Outside, in the rain, a hooded figure watched as the mayor knelt, defeated, having failed to sway Chan Seok. The mysterious man observed the scene, his face hidden, a silent observer of power plays. He looked at his phone, a clip playing of Chan Seok's Hunter Association certification exam video. The video showed Chan Seok in action, wielding incredible power, a true force to be reckoned with. With an ominous smile, the hooded man declared Chan Seok excellent, hinting at unseen plans for the powerful new hunter. Hunter Chan Seok lived in a world where everyone eagerly awaited the monthly hunter rankings, flocking to their phones the moment they dropped. People everywhere wondered if the new list was finally up. Even at home, the excitement was palpable. A young boy burst into the kitchen, shouting for his mother to look at the new rankings, unable to contain his joy. Others discussed it more casually. Two young men wondered who might take the top spot this month, though one remained indifferent, claiming he didn't care at all. Yet, for one man, nursing an injured arm, the news was deeply personal. He watched with a keen, almost desperate intensity, muttering, "Finally," to himself. The official announcement arrived with gravity. An aide presented the September World Hunter Rankings to Association President Moon Jong-tae, signaling the importance of the moment. A fierce-looking female hunter, holding a massive sword, also watched the screen, her eyes narrowed. She quietly wondered if a particular individual had made the list. Our boy, Chan Seok, observed all the fanfare with a calm, almost dismissive expression. He knew that despite the flashy show, only a small portion truly mattered. The general public might enjoy the spectacle, but for the serious players, only one thing held weight: the top 10. Everything else was just noise. The list began to reveal its elite. 5th place went to Kim Chae-yeon, a name whispered with respect among those who knew true strength. Kim Chae-yeon, a hunter wielding dual blades with deadly precision, was followed by the reveal of 3rd place, Choi Yo-reum, a force of nature. Choi Yo-reum, whose power manifested in explosive, fiery bursts, showed the raw, untamed might that earned a spot among the world's best. 2nd place was taken by Jang Tae-seok, a colossus of a man whose dedication to physical strength was legendary, constantly pushing his limits. Then came the moment everyone anticipated, the reveal of 1st place. The name echoed through the air, confirming what many had suspected: Mr. Chan Seok. A man nearby offered a congratulatory smile, acknowledging the unprecedented achievement, a testament to Chan Seok's rapid ascent. Chan Seok himself remained perfectly composed, his eyes reflecting a quiet satisfaction, betraying no surprise at his own success. The public attention was immediate and overwhelming. At a press conference, a reporter pressed him, asking if he had anticipated the escalation of the recent corrosion rift. He listened, his mind already drifting to his next obligations. He had a schedule to keep, and the endless questions were simply delaying him. Another reporter, eager to seize the moment, quickly followed up, asking about his future plans as the new top hunter, a question everyone wanted answered. He met their gaze with unwavering confidence. He wouldn't offer empty words or platitudes. He would simply show them his resolve through his actions and results. Soon after, a helicopter carried him over a grim landscape, the ruins of what was once Gonsul prison. The devastation was absolute. The scene below was a chilling testament to the world's changed reality. Buildings lay shattered, swallowed by a vast, dark chasm, a silent scar on the earth. Looking out the window, he noted that such horrific sights were common now, a grim reality that had spread across the entire globe. President Moon Jae-in, seated beside him, explained how South Korea alone had managed to not only defend itself, but also make incredible technological advancements. He pointed to the ruined cities below, confirming that many capitals had simply vanished after the corrosion rifts first appeared, leaving only desolation. The helicopter began its descent, bringing them closer to the heart of the desolation, a place that held a particularly dark history. The president recounted how Gonzal Prison, a rift that formed 13 years prior, had spread from the city center in a massive, silent circle without any warning. Those caught within its sudden expansion were simply swept away, given no chance to flee, their lives extinguished without a trace. He further explained that while global influence hadn't shifted much, the power of individual central governments had significantly weakened in the aftermath. Our boy listened patiently, then cut to the chase, asking what all this information had to do with the president calling him out here. Moon Jae-in then revealed the true reason for their meeting. Someone from the powerful Taipei Guild had come looking for him, a new complication in his life. The president's expression grew serious as he warned our boy to consider his next moves carefully, hinting at the Taipei Guild's ruthless nature. He met the warning with a slight competent smirk, simply asking, "What?" as if the threat held little weight for him. The president stood, emphasizing the potential danger and the need for a strategic approach when dealing with such formidable forces. Our boy acknowledged the challenge, admitting that fighting the Taipei Guild leader directly with brute force would be difficult at this moment. Moon Jae-in smiled subtly, confirming his earlier suspicion. He knew our boy wanted to act independently rather than joining a guild. The president's eyes held a knowing glint. He had offered his help, and he expected something in return, a subtle transaction of power. He handed our boy an envelope, a mission brief, stating simply that the favor was all he needed to remember, making it clear this was a debt. Our boy read the mission details, a look of confusion on his face. He wondered aloud if the definition of daily necessities had changed over the past 2 decades. The president explained that for some, the high-end luxury items listed were indeed necessities. He believed our boy, given his past, would understand. Still tapping the papers, our boy expressed his genuine confusion. He couldn't grasp why such luxuries were needed in countries where governments had shattered. Moon Jae-in patiently laid out the larger picture, explaining that even amidst global collapse, international politics and relationships still held immense importance. With a decisive click, our boy unbuckled his seatbelt, a sign of his impending action, regardless of the president's explanation. He continued to look at the papers, mulling over the implications, but his mind was already made up, his resolve firm. He looked up, his expression unyielding. Even with all the president's reasoning, he declared he would not change his mind about declining the mission. The president stared, utterly shocked by his refusal. He reminded our boy that he was still a rookie hunter who had just debuted. Ignoring the president's words, our boy casually tossed the mission papers out of the helicopter, sending them fluttering into the wind. He turned back, offering a cheeky thank you for the helicopter ride, before making his dramatic, unexpected exit. The president's face contorted in utter disbelief. He could only stammer, "What?" as our boy made his audacious move. Our boy plunged from the helicopter, falling through the sky as the mission papers scattered around him, a bold statement of his independence. The president watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the sheer audacity of the top-ranked hunter. His eyes remained wide with shock, a clear reflection of the unprecedented situation unfolding before him. His mouth hung open, utterly speechless, the silence speaking volumes about his profound bewilderment. Down below, a port worker looked up, confused by the sight of papers falling from the sky, a strange interruption to his mundane day. Moments later, our boy's hand burst from the water, proving he had indeed swum all the way to shore, a feat of incredible endurance. Soaked and shivering on the dock, he immediately began complaining, lamenting that he thought he was going to die from the ordeal. The port worker, seeing his distressed state, approached cautiously, not knowing what had happened, but sensing the man had been through a lot. The worker offered a kind word, and our boy, despite his earlier complaints, sincerely thanked him for the unexpected empathy. He stood on the dock, watching the sunset, a moment of quiet reflection after the day's events, contemplating his next steps. Images of the president and the Taebake Guild member flashed in his mind, reminding him of the challenges that still lay ahead. He pulled out his phone, ready to take matters into his own hands, determined to forge his own path. On his screen, a new mission appeared, one that genuinely required a hunter's help. The Association of Kidnapping Victims on Tsushima Island. He accepted. Sitting atop a container, bathed in the glow of the setting sun, he felt a sense of purpose. This was his chosen path, for better or worse. He looked out at the vast horizon, a determined glint in his eyes. He knew his journey was just beginning, and he was going to be busy for a while. Our protagonist, Yuo Chan-seok, was a hunter navigating a world reshaped by mysterious rifts. On September 3rd, fishermen set out for the jumbo shrimp season, only to find the sea strangely unsettling. Corrosion creatures nesting on Tsushima Island emerged from the depths and snatched the fishermen, hunting them like prey. A lone survivor, barely escaping with his life, reported that the captured men were still alive. Chan-seok scanned the mission details on his phone, absorbing the grim reality of the situation. The objective was clear: head to Tsushima Island, rescue the hostages, and eliminate the Grade 2 corrosion rift. A reward of 55 million won waited, a sum that would be entirely his if he tackled the mission alone. The thought of such a substantial payout, coupled with the immense fame of a heroic story, made the challenge tempting. He knew Grade 3 corrosion rifts, having faced them with his unique Paradox Flame, but Grade 2 was a different beast entirely. A Grade 2 creature was a natural disaster, capable of destruction on an apocalyptic scale. Even a Grade 1 creature demanded the full mobilization of an entire country. To minimize variables and ensure success against such a powerful foe, he realized he would need a capable ally. Yet, he knew most powerful hunters wouldn't bother with a mere civilian request like this. Then, a name, a face, flashed through his mind, sparking a flicker of realization. Soon he found himself on a boat, spear in hand, heading towards the perilous Tsushima Island. He turned to the woman beside him, her presence a silent testament to his decision. This was Han Sang-ah, the only person he felt might be able to help. He checked his device, calculating their remaining travel time to the island. He urged her to replenish her stamina, knowing this battle would be far more intense than their last. She seemed distracted, however, pointing to his shoulder gear with an almost childlike fascination. She recognized the Iron Seraph's shoulder gear as a rare, limited edition item. He proudly explained it was a gift from a junk dealer he'd contracted, then couldn't resist a jab at her. He dismissed her as a shitty rookie hunter, despite her valedictorian title, while he was a rising star who handled Grade 3 rifts alone. Just a few days prior, she looked up at him, a desperate plea in her eyes. He had asked her then if she needed a teammate, a question that hung heavy in the air between them. He brought up their near-death experience in a Grade 3 rift, hinting at the even greater danger of a Grade 2. He probed her, asking if she truly desired to become stronger, to transcend her current limits. She had confessed her desire to learn from him, acknowledging his superior strength with humble resolve. He made a bold promise. If she committed to his tutelage, he guaranteed she would become several times stronger. Her expression then was a mixture of desperation and unwavering resolve. She bore a deep-seated reason for seeking strength, a past burden that fueled her every ambition. She declared that if it meant gaining power, she would willingly throw herself into the very pits of hell. Their conversation was cut short by blaring alarms, signaling an unidentified object ahead. 5 enemy ships, a full fleet, had appeared on the horizon, blocking their path. Chan-seok contemplated their predicament. They needed to approach secretly, considering the hostages on board. He questioned Sang-ah, wondering if she possessed any special abilities for covert infiltration. To his surprise, she effortlessly floated above the water, showcasing a talent he hadn't known she possessed. She teased him, asking if he was unable to perform such a feat himself. He admitted his inability to run on water, prompting her to playfully mock him. Despite the playful banter, he quickly adapted, carrying her on his back as he sprinted across the waves. He told her to handle the nearest ship, sensing a peculiar energy emanating from the enemy vessels. She asked for clarification, curious about his sudden command. He explained that the mana signature grew stronger the further back the ships were, indicating greater danger. With a nod, she accepted the task, preparing herself for battle. As she approached the first ship, she noticed a figure on board, wondering if it was a human. Shan Seok quickly corrected her, urging her to look closer at the movements of the figure. He clarified that these were not human movements at all, but something far more sinister. A grotesque corrosion creature, its face a skull, lunged at her with a terrifying roar. The deck was littered with more of these abominations, surrounding the terrified, bound fisherman. She landed on the deck, immediately engaging the creatures with a surge of energy. Chan Seok warned her to land properly, reminding her that a reckless move would draw unnecessary attention. The ship was swarming with them, a horde of skeletal figures. He observed the creatures, assessing their strength with a keen eye. He noted that they were not high level, merely the lowest tier of Grade 2. But even the lowest tier of Grade 2 was a formidable challenge for Sung Ah alone. She fought with fierce determination, her body glowing with powerful mana. Shanseo called out to her, realizing she was expending far too much energy. He knew at this rate her mana reserves would quickly deplete, leaving her vulnerable. Her eyes widened in a desperate struggle, pushing past her limits. He yelled her name again, frustration coloring his voice as he saw her reckless expenditure. She struck a creature with immense force, but the effort was costing her dearly. Jansel urged her to reduce her output, to conserve what little mana she had left. He knew a lesser display of power would still be enough to handle these low-grade creatures. Her eyes, filled with a desperate resolve, recalled a painful memory. The memory of a weak, helpless child, trapped in an infinitely cold and dark existence. She vowed never to be that weakling again, unleashing a surge of power that defied his warnings. Her desire for strength, fueled by a reason only she truly understood, was absolute. If becoming stronger meant jumping into hell itself, then that was exactly where she would go. Han Sung, a skilled warrior, stood bruised and tired amidst the fallen enemies, catching her breath after a brutal fight. He looked up, a large, dark figure looming in the distance, a new threat emerging from the chaos of their recent battle. Our boy then turned back, giving a confident thumbs up, signaling that he had cleared out all the other enemy boats, securing their perimeter. Han Sung looked down at her blood-stained sword, a quiet moment of exhaustion and relief washing over her after the intense combat. He reloaded his weapon with a practiced ease, and she watched him, the metallic click echoing the finality of their immediate success. His expression was a mix of surprise and slight annoyance, holding his staff and gun as he realized the depth of her inexperience. He looked at her, his gaze holding a subtle challenge as she stood nearby, contemplating her next move after their recent exchange. Her bruised face hardened, revealing a fierce determination beneath the weariness, a clear sign that her resolve remained unshaken. He made a face of exaggerated shock and frustration, reacting to her stubbornness with a silent, comedic protest. The wide deck was littered with defeated foes as our protagonist walked across it, while she remained standing, a silent testament to their victory. Two uniformed officers stood at attention, saluting with crisp precision, marking the official end of their current operation. Both our hero and Han Sung watched the saluting men, their expressions a mix of acknowledgement and readiness for the next task. He spoke, turning his head slightly, relaying the crucial information that the hostages were reportedly located at a shrine on the island. She held up 2 fingers, indicating that there were 2 shrines, providing a clearer picture of their potential search areas. He rubbed his neck, listening intently to the details, the weight of their upcoming rescue mission already settling upon him. His eye narrowed, a serious glint appearing as he considered the situation, realizing the inherent difficulties and dangers ahead. The faces of the hostages, blank and numerous, flashed in his mind, a haunting reminder of the lives depending on their success. He looked ahead, a resolute expression on his face, fully aware of the challenges but determined to overcome them. A simple white van sat on a leafy road, and our hero asked Han Sung if she was a competent driver for their mission. She met his gaze with a confident smile, assuring him of her driving skills, unaware of the chaos she was about to unleash. He screamed in utter disbelief and alarm, her definition of good driving proving to be wildly different from his own. The van careened wildly, skulls and debris flying, as he yelled furiously about her apparent disregard for the brakes. Han Sang-ah, a wild grin on her face, continued to drive recklessly while our hero clung on, looking absolutely terrified and exasperated. He held his staff, a look of resignation settling on his face, deciding it was pointless to argue and accepting his fate as a passenger. He leaped out of the van, ready for action, preparing to engage the swarming creatures that pursued them relentlessly. Han Sang-ah, focused and determined, continued to drive, pushing the van forward despite the relentless assault from the monsters. He spun through the air, his staff a blur, striking down another one of the grotesque creatures closing in on them. The van sped past, leaving a trail of light and destruction, as more creatures flew through the air, unable to keep up with their pace. A monster's gaping maw, filled with razor-sharp teeth, snapped menacingly close, a stark reminder of the danger they faced. His hand gripped his staff tightly, impacting a creature with a solid thud, deflecting its attack with practiced skill. He smiled, a hint of satisfaction on his face, noting that his improvised defense was proving quite durable against the monsters. The van raced onward, our hero perched on top, fending off waves of monsters, a chaotic symphony of speed and combat. Han Sang-ah's face showed intense concentration, her hands firmly on the wheel, navigating the treacherous path with fierce resolve. He looked back, a worried expression crossing his features, realizing the risky maneuver she was about to pull off. She swerved the van violently, using it as a weapon to smash through a cluster of monsters, sending our hero flying from his perch. He looked utterly stunned and annoyed, barely having time to register his airborne state before the next impact. The ancient shrine entrance loomed ahead, a beacon of hope, even as the sounds of pursuit echoed behind them. Their pursuers' grotesque feet pounded on the steps, their relentless chase bringing them ever closer to the shrine. The shrine gate was now clearly in sight, and he urged Han Sang-ah to drive inside quickly, securing the hostages. She glanced back, questioning the remaining threat, but he assured her he would handle the pursuing monsters, taking on the burden himself. With a burst of speed, Han Sang-ah accelerated the van, rushing toward the shrine entrance, leaving him to face the creatures alone. Our hero stood his ground, dark energy swirling around him, preparing to unleash his power against the relentless horde. His eye glowed with fierce intensity, surrounded by the ominous purple energy, a clear sign of his awakening abilities. He explained his strategy, stating that he simply needed to burn away the friction from the stairs, allowing him to ascend faster. A powerful surge ignited the steps, the friction vanishing as he effortlessly ascended, leaving the monsters behind. Inside the shrine, several people were tied up, their faces etched with fear and desperation, awaiting rescue. He approached one of the hostages, his face filled with concern, asking if he was all right after their ordeal. Han Sang-ah, now composed and professional, introduced herself as a hunter from the association, attempting to reassure the captive. However, the hostage was overcome with terror, drooling and trembling, clearly traumatized by his experience. Han Sang-ah looked confused and slightly frustrated, trying to explain that she was there to save him, not harm him. Instead, the hostage let out a blood-curdling scream, his eyes wide with fear, completely misunderstanding their intentions. Her eye glowed with a fierce, almost electric blue, a sudden shift in her demeanor as she sensed a new, powerful threat. Then, enveloped in blue energy, she stood facing a massive, monstrous foe, her true power now fully unleashed. With a glowing sword, she clashed directly with the colossal monster, the fight for the hostages taking an unexpected and dangerous turn. Our hero, seeing the overwhelming threat, stepped forward, a determined look in his eyes, ready to assist, knowing he had to handle this one. Yuchun Seok found himself locked in a desperate battle against a formidable samurai-like monster. The creature raised its massive sword, a terrifying display of raw power that our hero barely managed to deflect. His face was etched with strain, the effort of holding back such a monstrous blow pushing him to his absolute limits. With a guttural roar, the beast pressed its attack, relentless and unyielding in its destructive intent. But just as quickly, the tide turned, the monster began to crumble, its form fracturing into countless pieces. Its armor, once solid and menacing, shattered like fragile glass, revealing the true power of Chan Seok's counter. He landed lightly after the explosive conflict, his gaze fixed on the fading remnants of his defeated foe. The immediate danger passed. He and Han Sang-ah found themselves speeding away in a car, discussing the hostages they had just rescued. Below them, a horde of menacing figures swarmed, their glowing eyes fixed on the retreating vehicle. Han Sang-ah watched the escalating threat with growing concern, her expression a mix of fear and urgency. Our boy, however, remained resolute. His eyes narrowed in silent determination as he stared straight ahead. More creatures burst from the earth, their eerie red eyes fixated on the car as it sped past. From the depths of the shadowy forest, an even larger, more grotesque monster emerged, letting out a chilling cry. Chan Seok realized with a heavy sigh that this formidable foe was still very much alive, even after their earlier encounter. He then turned to Han Sang-ah, asking for her sword, a request that left her utterly bewildered and insulted. The relentless pursuit continued, the horde of undead creatures closing in from all sides, their numbers seemingly endless. Despite her initial outrage, she understood the gravity of the situation, reluctantly handing over her precious weapon. He grasped the sword firmly, the weight of it a familiar comfort in his hands as he prepared for what was to come. With a focused intensity, he positioned himself, ready to face the overwhelming odds with the borrowed blade. A faint blue glow emanated from his wrist, a subtle activation of a hidden power he had hoped not to use so soon. Days earlier, inside the treacherous Gyeodongdo Grade 3 corrosion rift, he had stumbled upon a mysterious object. He stared at the peculiar item, trying to discern its purpose, his curiosity piqued by its unusual design. It was a simple-looking glove, yet it pulsed with a subtle, otherworldly energy that hinted at its true nature. As he put the glove on, he immediately sensed its unique properties, confirming his suspicions that it was no ordinary artifact. The glove began to hum, visibly drawing mana from the surrounding atmosphere, a silent, efficient process. He internally mused that while it seemed like basic equipment meant to supplement one's mana, it was far more to him. For a brief 5 minutes, this glove allowed him to tap into a power that could rival even the strongest of his peers. Back in the present, he unleashed his newfound strength, a flurry of precise attacks cutting down multiple monsters with ease. Han Sang-ah watched, utterly stunned by the sudden, overwhelming display of power from the man she thought she knew. Creatures collapsed around him, their forms dissolving into dust as his attacks tore through their ranks. With the immediate threat neutralized, he calmly instructed them to continue their journey toward the port without a backward glance. They sped across the Hatakatsu port bridge, but the nightmare was far from over as more monsters appeared, chasing them relentlessly. Han Sang-ah worried the car was at its limit and suggested they fight on foot, but Chan Seok insisted they keep driving. The car's wheels glowed with an ethereal blue light, pushing past its normal capabilities, though for how much longer, no one knew. Suddenly, a wave of energy erupted from the car, pushing back the encroaching monsters with incredible force. Han Sang-ah gasped, her eyes wide with surprise as she witnessed the car's mysterious defense in action. The monsters, moments ago a relentless tide, were now held at bay by an invisible barrier, unable to approach the vehicle. She looked around, her expression one of utter confusion, wondering what could possibly be causing such a phenomenon. A glowing, intricate formation appeared on a nearby wall, clearly the source of the protective magic. She quickly asked Chan Seok what the protective formation geometry was, eager to understand this new defensive technique. He simply scoffed, telling her that even if he explained it, she wouldn't be able to learn such an advanced skill. He then clarified that while useful, this geometry method couldn't repel the truly dangerous, real monsters. And as if on cue, a terrifying, glowing samurai monster appeared, emanating an aura of pure malevolence. Its single red eye glowed ominously, focused solely on its objective, to protect something at all costs. Han Sang-ah felt a chill run down her spine, the monster's presence making the entire atmosphere heavy with dread. Chan Seok, however, observed the creature with a calm intensity, recognizing its use of a technique known as mind's eye. Han Sang-ah's eyes widened as she processed the term, understanding the incredible skill required for such an ability. She knew that even for skilled masters, mind's eye was an incredibly difficult technique, making the monster's proficiency alarming. Our boy turned back to her, a confident smirk playing on his lips, assuring her there was no need to be afraid. His eyes held a deep, knowing look, ready to demonstrate how easily these so-called advanced techniques could be overcome. He promised to teach her how to deal with such things, ready to demystify what seemed impossible to others. With a swift motion, he launched himself forward, striking the monster with incredible speed and precision. His movements were a blur, a masterful display of swordsmanship that left no room for the monster to react. He moved with an almost supernatural grace, flowing around the monster's defenses with effortless skill. Han Sang-ah, momentarily startled by his solo charge, mentally recalled the various advanced techniques like heart sword that masters pursued. He continued his relentless assault, each strike dismantling the monster's form with devastating efficiency. The powerful creature shattered into countless fragments, its imposing figure reduced to mere dust in an instant. Chan Seok glanced back at her, his expression calm and assured, having effortlessly defeated a foe that seemed insurmountable. The remnants of the monster lay scattered, a testament to the overwhelming power he had just wielded. Han Sang-ah watched him, her previous assumptions about his strength completely shattered by his performance. She had always believed her own efforts were the best, but now she questioned what she had truly achieved on her own. Yu Chan Seok's power far exceeded anything she had ever imagined, forcing her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew. He turned away, a silent understanding passing between them, marking a pivotal shift in their dynamic. With a newfound resolve, Han Sang-ah looked at him with an intense gaze, ready to shed her pride and ask him to truly teach her. Yu Chan Seok, a hunter of extraordinary skill, found himself confronted by a young woman with an urgent request. She looked at him with fierce resolve, stating her desire to be taught for real, beyond just advice or demonstrations. He had been teaching her already, he wondered, curious about what more she could possibly want from him. But Han Sang-ah insisted that mere advice wasn't enough. She needed his direct personal guidance. He asked for her reason, a slight tilt to his head as he considered her unusual demand. Compared to him, she was ridiculously weak, she explained, desperate to become stronger as quickly as possible. Her ultimate goal was to destroy Club Shaddai, the organization that had ruined her family, with her own two hands. Club Shaddai was one of the Great Eight, the most dangerous corruption rifts known to exist in the world. It was infamous for its sheer destructive power, capable of swallowing entire mountain ranges in a single breath. Her goal was certainly ambitious, perhaps even bigger than necessary, he mused silently. He clarified her motivation, asking if this was truly about revenge for her family. That was right, she confirmed, her gaze unwavering as she spoke of her family's plight. Of course, she wasn't asking him to do this for free, she added, producing a sleek black card. He took the card, his eyes scanning the name printed on it, KY Group. It was a corporation with a market capitalization of 257 trillion, she revealed, the very company her family owned. So, she was the daughter of a prominent family, he realized, understanding a bit more about her background. Even so, she admitted that her grandfather was the current owner, and she had given up on the succession competition. He pointed out that if she achieved something significant as a hunter, she might find herself swept back into that battle. He knew she hadn't just given him the card for him to look at it, sensing there was more to her offer. He pressed her, asking exactly what she truly wanted from him in exchange for her family's resources. She wanted him to make her the best, she declared, promising him rare elixirs in return. These weren't just any elixirs, they were hard-to-get items, not released through general distribution channels. He understood her desire to become stronger, to reach a new realm of power, just like him. With the elixirs she provided, he could potentially reach an even higher realm, she believed. But Han Sang-ah wouldn't believe him even if he told her the truth about his own power. The realm she wished to reach, the peak of strength, he had already achieved a long time ago. The real reason he needed to become stronger now was for a far grander purpose. It was solely to return the world to the way it was before, to undo the damage that had been done. He didn't need rare elixirs or things that were hard to get. For now, he just needed her to get him one specific item. She wondered if what he asked for, seemingly so little, would truly be enough for him. It was plenty, he assured her, his gaze firm. More importantly, he told her, they needed to move the car to the medical center. At the medical center, a doctor explained that with 7 patients in total, their recovery would take time. Considering their nutritional status, it would be at least a week before they could even hold a conversation. They would be informed when the patients regained consciousness, so for now, they needed to rest. Han Sung-ah simply nodded, accepting the doctor's words. Outside, Yu Chan-so called her name, telling her it was time to start their training right away. She was stunned, asking if he meant right now, completely unprepared for the sudden instruction. He stood ready, his spear held firmly, the training about to begin. Before they started, he posed a question to her. If he swung his spear with full power, he asked, did she think she could dodge it? She looked at him with a puzzled expression, wondering why he would ask something so obvious. He told her she could definitely dodge it, despite her doubts. If she used her senses to their absolute limit, it was entirely possible, he explained. She needed to see with her eyes, hear with her ears, smell the scent, and feel with her skin. She had to dominate all her senses, fighting in the realm of consciousness, not unconsciousness. Then, he challenged her, asking if she had learned well before disappearing in a flash. She was utterly bewildered. He had vanished before even finishing his sentence. Where was he, she wondered, trying to pinpoint his location, focusing first on sound. He was wrong, he stated, his spear now at her neck, her senses too slow to react. In real combat, he reminded her, there was no time to think. She needed to accept her senses as they were and move, without hesitation or overthinking. Because senses that were not yet mastered would only deceive her in critical moments. That was enough theory for now, he declared. It was time to move on to practice. The world-saving skill she sought was far more complex than she imagined. He attacked with swift, relentless strikes, forcing her to react purely on instinct. She moved to block, her body responding to the sudden onslaught. He continued his assault, each blow precise and powerful. She barely managed to dodge, feeling the sheer force behind his movements. His spear descended with full power, a testament to his incredible skill. She couldn't dodge it all, she realized, a flicker of panic in her eyes as the blows landed. Suddenly, a police officer rushed towards them, interrupting the intense training session. One of the survivors had just woken up, he announced, his voice urgent. They both looked at each other, the training momentarily forgotten. Let's go together, he said, and they headed inside to see the survivor. Han Sang-ah gasped, realizing how much time had passed, the training having felt both instantaneous and endless. Since she seemed to have learned to block somewhat well, he decided to end the first session here. First training session, she echoed, a hint of exhaustion and disbelief in her voice, wondering what more was to come. He sat by the survivor's bedside, listening intently as the old man recounted his experience. The old man described a truck that had come to their captive location, filled with people who were not hostile to the monsters. This man, with a face full of piercings, was no ordinary person, he realized. The mysterious figure turned, a chilling smile on his face, greeting them as brats, a clear challenge for what lay ahead. Kim Ji-hoon, a man caught in a desperate situation, found himself facing a powerful, blue-haired adversary. Her eyes, sharp and intense, fixed on him as she introduced herself, declaring her intention to take them alive. He and his companion Han Sang-ah exchanged a look, a shared unease passing between them at the word alive. The woman then revealed a bloodied, unconscious man, stating that showing them the opposite of alive first would be a more effective lesson. With a chilling casualness, she hurled the man into a gaping corrosion rift nearby. Sang-ah gasped in horror, recognizing the dark portal and the grim fate of anyone thrown inside. A wave of pure terror washed over Sang-ah's face as the man began his grotesque transformation. Before their eyes, the man twisted and mutated, becoming a monstrous corrosion creature. The blue-haired woman strolled past the newly formed abomination, unimpressed, remarking on its inherent weakness. One of her subordinates swiftly dispatched the creature, a brutal display of their power and lack of mercy. Ji-hyun and Sang-ah stood frozen, witnessing the cold-blooded efficiency of their captors. A chill ran down Ji-hyun's spine as he quietly wondered if they were next to be turned into such abominations. The woman then turned to them, a sinister smile playing on her lips, explaining that their previous attempts at creating corrosion creatures hadn't been satisfactory. Sang-ah's eyes widened in dawning horror, while Ji-hyun realized with a sickening twist that these people weren't interested in ransom from hostages. A wide shot revealed the true victims, a group of terrified individuals, now understood to be nothing more than raw materials for the woman's twisted experiments. The blue-haired woman then began to explain her group's ideology, her voice taking on a zealous tone. She proudly proclaimed her faction as the Descendants of Dangun, a name loaded with historical significance. Her gaze hardened, revealing the singular, unwavering purpose that drove every action of their organization. She declared their mission was to strengthen South Korea's standing in the world, ensuring its absolute dominance. Her voice rose in a fervent crescendo, vowing to forge their homeland into an absolute, fucking strong superpower. She painted a vivid picture of a future where the nation would rise to unprecedented heights, feared and respected by all. Our protagonist, Ji-hyun, could only stare, a flicker of confusion crossing his face at her passionate speech. He mused aloud, wondering if he had misheard, as he believed their country was already a formidable superpower. The woman's face contorted in a furious snarl, her patience clearly wearing thin with his flippant remark. She vehemently insisted that their current power was not enough, her words laced with fierce conviction. She reiterated their goal, to elevate their proud nation to heights where no one would ever dare to challenge them. Her final declaration solidified their ambition to transform their country into an absolute, immutable superpower. She then delved into the painful history of the Korean peninsula, recounting past humiliations with bitter resentment. Images of past eras flashed by, depicting Koreans stripped of tributes and forced to bow their heads day after day. The Japanese flag appeared, a stark symbol of the ultimate insult, having their sovereignty stolen entirely. Her voice grew sharp with vengeance, promising to repay every single humiliation they had ever suffered. Suddenly, Ji-hyun was sent flying backward by a powerful unseen force, caught off guard by her speed. He quickly recovered, his stance shifting, ready to face the formidable opponent before him. Ji-hyun and Sang-ah stood together, their expressions grim, realizing the gravity of the fight ahead. He found himself grudgingly admitting that he could, to some extent, understand her underlying motivation. He knew that if the corrosion rifts were to vanish, Korea's current advantageous position would be difficult to maintain. He then asked her directly if their grand plan included any intention of saving the world from the rifts. She responded with a cold, unequivocal no, dismissing the notion entirely. Ji-hyun pressed on, pointing out the countless innocent lives that were currently under threat. She simply scoffed, telling him that he and Sang-ah were the ones who truly understood nothing. She then dropped a bombshell, claiming that her group had discovered a way to control the corrosion rifts themselves. Ji-hyun's eyes widened in surprise. If her words were true, then everything they knew about the situation would change. He pondered the implications. If rift control was truly possible, they wouldn't have to endure such suffering. He decided to play along, expressing a feigned willingness to cooperate and asking about the true extent of their control. Pushing his luck, he even offered to hand over Sang-ah, hoping to buy more time with this audacious bluff. The blue-haired woman looked at him with disdain, refusing to reveal any more of her group's secrets. Ji-hyun's momentary surprise turned to skepticism when she admitted their control was just enough. He immediately saw through her deception, realizing their control was far from complete, and called her a scamming bastard. He continued to mock her, pointing out that her group always talked a big game but never delivered concrete results. He concluded that a group of thugs pretending to have a grand cause wouldn't possess such sophisticated abilities. Enraged by his taunts, the blue-haired woman let out a furious roar, demanding he shut up. She launched a devastating kick, sending Ji-hyun sprawling across the shattered ground. As he landed, he winced, wondering if his attempt to provoke her had gone a little too far. He admitted to himself that he had been trying to stall for time, hoping to replenish some of his depleted mana. Now, with the fight fully engaged, he knew there was no turning back. It simply couldn't be helped. He realized with a jolt that he didn't have enough mana left to unleash his powerful paradox flame. His only viable strategy now was a battle of attrition, slowly wearing down his formidable opponent. Suddenly, the blue-haired woman's eyes widened in shock, caught off guard by Sang-ah's unexpected intervention. Sang-ah's body began to glow with a fierce green energy, signaling her readiness to join the fray. Her weapon, a sleek blade, crackled intensely, enveloped in the same vibrant green power. She turned to Ji-hyun, her voice firm, telling him to stay back as she prepared to step in. Ji-hyun, seeing the rapidly depleting charge of her gauntlet, knew the immense risk she was taking. Sang-ah then looked at him, asking how much precious time he needed for his preparations. He quickly responded, his voice urgent, 5 minutes. Without hesitation, Sang-ah consumed a glowing blue elixir, her resolve hardening. She declared her intention to handle the situation, her gaze unwavering. Ji-hyun watched in alarm, warning her that she risked overloading herself by refining so much elixir at once. Sang-ah simply replied that it was for emergencies, knowing this might be their one and only chance. Ji-hyun nodded, accepting her sacrifice and the gravity of their desperate plan. He locked eyes with her, a silent promise passing between them, telling her, "Don't lose." The chapter's title appeared, signaling the intense confrontation that was about to unfold. Sang-ah's form was enveloped in crackling blue lightning, her power surging as she prepared her attack. The blue-haired woman, however, merely smirked, dismissively calling Sang-ah a pretty girl. She even warned Sang-ah, with a condescending tone, not to accidentally kill Ji-hyun in her misguided effort. Sang-ah unleashed a blinding torrent of blue lightning, a powerful attack aimed directly at her opponent. Yet, with a casual flick of her wrist, the blue-haired woman effortlessly deflected the entire assault. Sang-ah stared, stunned, realizing that her all-out attack had barely registered on the formidable adversary. The blue-haired woman landed gracefully, completely unharmed, and mockingly asked if Sang-ah's attack was supposed to be nothing special. She stood ready for more. Yo Chan-soyop found Kim Ji-hyun gasping for air, his body failing him, unable to breathe or feel his own heartbeat as dark energy consumed him. Ji-hyun's back was a canvas of torment, surrounded by swirling shadows, a clear indication of his rapidly fading life force. The hooded captain, observing from above, casually remarked on Ji-hyun's stubborn pride, even as he barely stood using the last vestiges of his mana. Our boy, Yoo Chan-soyok, watched the scene unfold with a grim, determined expression, ready to intervene. Suddenly, Chan-seok moved with a burst of light, a swift, decisive action that changed the dynamic of the grim tableau. He looked up, a question in his eyes, wondering what new twist this confrontation would take. The captain noted how Chan-seok had managed to pull out a spear, a feat he hadn't intended, having only aimed to crush his wrist. The hooded figure acknowledged Chan-seok's keen intuition, recognizing it as a valuable trait in their dangerous world. Chan-seok met the captain's gaze, a challenging question lingering in his mind about the hooded man's identity and true intentions. His eyes, sharp and unwavering, reflected a deep understanding of the situation, showing no fear despite the danger. The captain, his red eyes glowing menacingly from beneath his hood, conceded that Chan-seok's skill was far superior to anyone else present, perhaps 3 or 4 times greater. From a distance, Chan-seok concluded that the captain had no real intention of killing him, otherwise it would have already been done. His face showed a flicker of purple energy, drawing the captain's peculiar interest to his unique abilities. Ji-hyun, meanwhile, was engulfed in agonizing purple flames, his desperate gasps for help growing weaker. Chan-seok's eyes narrowed, a grim realization dawning on him about Ji-hyun's mana having been completely depleted even before his collapse. He made a swift, powerful move, understanding that the captain had deliberately chosen not to strike a fatal blow, aiming for his wrist instead of his head. Ji-hyun's face was a mask of suffering, drooling, and barely conscious, his life being sustained by the captain's own mana. He weakly managed a plea for help, his voice barely a whisper, a desperate sound that hung heavy in the air. The captain, with a chilling display of control, gently caught the collapsing Ji-hyun, maintaining his sinister hold. Chan-seok looked on, a deep concern etched on his face, knowing Ji-hyun faced a future of being entirely dependent on mana just to survive. The captain moved with impossible speed, a blur of motion that closed the distance in an instant, leaving Chan-seok surprised. The hooded figure glowed with power, reiterating his need for Chan-seok to remain alive, regardless of his current state. Chan-seok's defiance was clear. He would rather die than become a puppet in someone else's schemes. With a final, unsettling statement, the captain declared his withdrawal, Ji-hyun now a captive behind him. The captain's hand glowed with dark energy, and he ominously promised that Chen Seok, too, would one day fall under his control. The battlefield was a scene of utter destruction, with Yu Chun-sok and Lee Se-yun assessing the aftermath, both bearing the toll of the recent fight. Chan-seok's expression was serious as he began to process the implications of the captain's words and actions. Lee Se-yun, limping beside him, voiced her theory. The attackers must be after Chan-seok's unique skill, given their strange behavior. She mused that if they were truly terrorists, they would have simply taken her hostage while she was unconscious. Chan-seok urged her to think carefully about their objectives and the unusual methods they employed. Se-yun's eyes widened as she considered the possibility that the Korean government might be complicit or at least opposed to the captain's group. Chan-seok's stance conveyed a deeper understanding, as if he already knew the complex web of political intrigue at play. Se-yun, looking worried, then questioned if they should eliminate the corrosion rift, since the captain's group claimed to control it. She scoffed, acknowledging Chan-seok's bluntness, knowing he wasn't one for pretense or political games. Chan-seok's feet carried him forward, his decision made. They would deal with the immediate threat of the rift first. Se-yun looked at him, her face etched with concern, asking if he was truly all right with going into the rift alone. Chan-seok simply looked back, his gaze resolute, offering a quiet assurance that he would handle it. He turned and walked away, his instructions clear. Se-yun was to rest and recover until his return. The air shimmered as Chan-seok stepped into the corrosion rift, leaving the destroyed world behind for an unknown darkness. He descended into the eerie green glow of the rift, the atmosphere immediately heavy and unsettling. Before him stood an ancient, imposing castle, a structure that felt out of place yet perfectly sinister within the corrupted space. He cautiously touched the wall, testing its unexpected solidity, a stark contrast to the squishy undead he anticipated. Chan-seok looked around, confirming this was indeed a Grade 2 corrosion rift, its presence palpable and dangerous. He stood before a grand, ornate door, the oppressive yin energy piercing his lungs with every breath, a clear sign of immense power beyond. His face was a mask of grim determination, knowing that even a slight lapse in caution could lead to his demise. The eerie silence within the rift was a prelude to the horrors he was about to uncover, amplifying the tension. He found the core of the rift, a massive cauldron, bubbling with a sickly green liquid, a horrifying focal point of corruption. The cauldron churned and bubbled, its contents glowing with an unnatural, malevolent light. Chan-seok stared, a dawning horror on his face, realizing this grotesque vessel was the true core of the Grade 2 corrosion rift. A hand, partially melted and distorted, reached out from the bubbling depths, a sight that was far more gruesome than anything he had anticipated. Chan-seok's eyes widened in shock, caught off guard by the raw, desperate plea for salvation. A person, half submerged in the vile liquid, cried out for help, their body dissolving, pleading for someone to save them from the unimaginable pain. Chan-seok recoiled as the victim screamed about their legs being gone, the agony palpable, echoing through the chamber. The victims' desperate cries faded as they were pulled further into the cauldron, their final moments consumed by the horrific process. The bubbling intensified, the green liquid swirling around the remnants of the body, signaling a grotesque transformation. An undead creature clawed its way out, its form grotesque and monstrous, a product of the cauldron's dark magic. Chan-seok's face twisted in disgust, horrified by the sheer cruelty of using living beings to create such abominations. His jaw tightened, a silent question burning in his eyes. Why would anyone commit such an atrocious act? The undead monster lunged, its attack fierce, a barrage of decaying flesh and corrupting energy. Chan-seok instinctively covered his mouth, overwhelmed by the putrid stench of decay and corruption that filled the air. His eyes blazed with a fierce anger, disgusted by the very existence of these vile, inhuman creatures. The undead creature, however, sensed something different about this new sacrifice, a powerful energy emanating from him. As Chan-seok stepped forward, a vibrant, familiar energy pulsed from his body, unlike anything the undead had encountered before. The creature's hollow eyes seemed to widen as it recognized the unique power radiating from our boy. Yu Chan-seok stood tall, now fully engulfed in a brilliant warrior's energy, ready to face the monstrosity, his true nature finally unleashed. Our protagonist, a determined warrior, found himself facing down a formidable foe, knowing the fate of the world often came down to skill. The samurai, cloaked in an eerie green glow, commanded him to draw his weapon, promising to temper his blade with the protagonist's blood. Our hero had been wondering if this powerful being was the core of the Grade 2 corrosion rift, feeling a pressure so intense it made his hair stand on end. He saw the samurai, bound by a heavy chain around his neck, and a chilling thought crossed his mind. This hooded man had subdued the monster alive and was now controlling it. The sheer audacity of such an act left him utterly bewildered, questioning how anyone in the world could achieve such a feat. With a silent command, the samurai shifted his stance, signaling that the protagonist's full attention needed to be on this immediate threat. He grimly acknowledged that this samurai was operating on a level far beyond even the mysterious hooded man he had encountered earlier. The samurai launched a blindingly fast attack, a swift strike that promised dire consequences for any misstep. The speed was almost impossible to track, leaving the protagonist with only a gasp of disbelief as he tried to react. The attack was incredibly fast, a blur of motion that defied his perception and pushed his senses to their absolute limit. He knew that in a fight this critical, his very lifeline stretched precariously thin, demanding absolute precision and not a single error. The method for dealing with such an overwhelmingly strong enemy was simple in theory, but brutal in execution. He understood he had to end the fight in a single decisive strike before his opponent could even begin to grasp his weaknesses. With that resolve, he unleashed his own attack, pouring all his strength into a rapid, desperate counteroffensive. The protagonist pushed his body to its absolute limits, channeling every ounce of his power into one supreme effort. He delivered what he believed to be his maximum output, a strike designed to be both overwhelming and inescapable. Yet, to his utter shock, the samurai effortlessly blocked his most powerful attack. A wave of disbelief washed over him. He simply could not comprehend how his strike had been so completely negated. Even more surprising than the block itself was the fact that he hadn't seen the blocking motion at all. He replayed the moment in his mind, but there was no visual trace of how the samurai had moved to intercept his blow. The samurai, true to his nature, initiated another swift attack, moving with a speed that blurred the lines of reality. He moved with the clear implication that his attacks were meant to be unseen, to strike before any defense could even register. The protagonist reeled as the samurai's weapon connected, a sharp impact that sent blood spraying. A guttural cry escaped him as the pain flared, a stark reminder of the sheer power he was up against. Through the pain, a terrifying realization dawned. The samurai could move even faster than he had initially perceived. The samurai then spoke, remarking that the protagonist was doing well to make him miss his vital points. With a chilling calm, the samurai prepared to strike again, challenging him to try blocking this next blow as well. Despite the agony, the protagonist clenched his jaw, refusing to succumb to the overwhelming force. He knew he had to bring out his paradox flame, even though he had hoped to save it for a more opportune moment. The problem was that since his opponent wasn't a living being, the paradox flame had no real meaning as an attack. A wave of frustration washed over him, leaving him uncertain of his next move against such a unique and powerful foe. He took a ragged breath, trying to clear his head and find a new strategy amidst the chaos of the battle. The protagonist admitted to himself that this fight had been a relentless series of surprises, one after another. The samurai, observing the protagonist's struggle, expressed a strange curiosity about the situation. He wondered aloud what exactly it would take to make someone like the protagonist finally fall. The samurai moved with renewed intent, his glowing form a menacing presence as he prepared another devastating strike. Once more, the protagonist was struck, the force of the blow sending him reeling and further deepening his injuries. His body screamed in protest, every muscle aching as he struggled to maintain his footing against the relentless assault. He let out a pained groan, the realization hitting him that he had torn every muscle in his body during the intense exchange. The sheer agony nearly caused him to lose consciousness, his mind flickering at the edge of oblivion for a brief instant. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, the samurai had failed to tear the muscles above his shoulders, leaving a sliver of hope. Seizing that small chance, he decided to use his paradox flame to boost his recovery and rapidly heal his torn muscles. He moved swiftly, managing to take a position behind the samurai before his opponent could even notice the maneuver. A glimmer of opportunity sparked within him, making him wonder if he finally had a real chance to turn the tide. But the samurai, with an uncanny awareness, blocked his counterattack, repeating his earlier declaration. He simply stated, "Too slow," his words echoing with an undeniable truth that crushed the protagonist's momentary hope. The protagonist stared in stunned silence, his mind struggling to process how his carefully planned ambush had been so easily thwarted. Another swift strike connected, sending more blood splattering and reaffirming the samurai's absolute dominance. He staggered back, his body screaming from the repeated impacts, barely able to stay on his feet. The protagonist realized his last desperate attack had completely missed its mark, landing nowhere near a vital point. The samurai, in a detached tone, told him he was quite lucky to have survived the encounter. The protagonist retorted, insisting the samurai could have definitely killed him if he had truly intended to. The samurai paused, then admitted that indeed, he certainly could have killed him. He then revealed that his restraint was only because he was not the old me, implying a past self of even greater power. The protagonist's eyes widened in shock, asking for clarification, unable to fathom what the samurai meant. The samurai explained that in his current state, he couldn't even recall a single name, having lost most of his memories from life. He spoke of the fatal gaps in his technique caused by this memory loss, and how he had been defeated by an unidentified man and fitted with a disgraceful shackle. This was only the beginning. The true nature of his curse remained a mystery. The chapter opened with a sense of brewing tension, hinting at a powerful conflict about to unfold in a world where saving humanity was a skill. Our boy, once confident, lay on the ground, seemingly defeated and out of options, the light around him dimming. His opponent, an ethereal figure with glowing eyes and long, dark hair, loomed over him, a sinister presence. Then, a miracle occurred. Black flames erupted from our boy, covering his form and instantly restoring all his wounds and lost energy. The antagonist observed this strange recovery, noting how the peculiar black flame seemed to be burning something beyond just physical damage. Our boy, now back on his feet and holding the staff, confirmed his opponent's keen observation. His flame burned concepts themselves. He remembered the immense toll this power took, a visual reminder of the sheer exhaustion and struggle that came with wielding such a unique skill. He explained that the conceptual weight of things like fatigue differed greatly from simple friction, meaning larger concepts demanded far more mana and skill to manipulate. He recalled a past battle with Kim Ji-hyun, where he had to meticulously control his flames to avoid burning away his own strength. He mused that his former self, a great sword of power, wouldn't have worried about such fine control, unlike his current self, whom he compared to a mere fruit knife. His hand glowed with purple energy, signifying his resolve to push past his current limits, realizing this was no time for caution. With a determined glint in his eyes, he declared his intention to burn away the very durability of their current location. The antagonist, still confused by this abstract ability, questioned what he meant by burning durability. Our boy simply brushed off the question, stating he had already given enough explanation for now. As the antagonist's eyes glowed, the environment around them began to crack and distort under the unseen force. A powerful, invisible strike sent the antagonist reeling backward, the air shimmering with residual energy. Our boy watched, a hint of satisfaction on his face, as his opponent struggled against the unexpected assault. The antagonist grimaced, clearly in pain, realizing the true nature of the attack as his surroundings weakened. Our boy smirked, having now confirmed his opponent's limits, which, ironically, made his plan even more perfect. The antagonist stood amidst the crumbling reality, his form radiating an eerie blue light, preparing for a counterattack. His glowing green eyes narrowed, reflecting the surge of power he was about to unleash in response. A brilliant burst of energy erupted from him, signaling his intent to retaliate against our boy's unconventional assault. He now held a sword, his stance radiating fierce determination as he prepared to meet our boy in direct combat. Their weapons met with a blinding flash, a sharp clang echoing through the collapsing space as they exchanged blows. Our boy gritted his teeth, the impact of the clash reverberating through him, but his resolve remained unshaken. The antagonist pressed his attack, his movements swift and powerful, forcing our boy to defend fiercely. Our boy was momentarily knocked back, the force of the blow throwing him off balance. Yet, in the next instant, the antagonist was the one who suffered a deep, slashed wound, the black flame doing its work. Our boy charged through the shattering debris, fueled by his burning concept, relentless in his pursuit. The antagonist leaped into the air, attempting to gain an advantage, his blade ready to descend. Our boy, with a fierce roar, launched another precise strike, aiming for a critical point. He attacked from below, his spear thrusting upward with incredible speed and force. A blinding impact occurred, showering the area with destructive energy as their powers collided head-on. The antagonist absorbed the full force of the blow, his body contorting under the pressure. The ground beneath them fractured further, unable to withstand the sheer power unleashed in their battle. The antagonist dropped to one knee, visibly weakened, his voice filled with bewilderment as he questioned our boy's identity. He repeated his question, eyes wide with disbelief, unable to comprehend the nature of his opponent's strength. A close-up showed the antagonist's face twisting in shock, a rare display of vulnerability from the powerful entity. Our boy simply observed, allowing the impact of his attacks and the crumbling environment to speak for themselves. With renewed vigor, our boy prepared for another decisive strike, his weapon glowing with fierce energy. The antagonist's form was enveloped in a web of destructive energy, like a digital virus corrupting his very being. He let out a guttural scream of intense pain, the conceptual burning taking a heavy toll on him. His face was a mask of agony, eyes wide and glowing intensely, as the attack continued to consume him. The antagonist's body distorted and shimmered, showing the deep damage he was sustaining from the unique power. Our boy screamed, pouring all his remaining strength into a final, overwhelming push against his weakening foe. His face was a picture of raw determination, every muscle strained as he closed the distance for the decisive blow. He landed a crushing punch, the impact sending ripples of energy through the antagonist's body. The two combatants were locked in a desperate struggle, a flurry of strikes and parries filling the air. Our boy absorbed another powerful hit, his armor cracking, but he stood firm, refusing to yield. The antagonist also showed signs of severe damage, his body flickering, barely holding together. The intensity of their final exchange was palpable, both warriors pushing past their limits, reflected in their strained faces. A massive explosion of purple energy erupted, signifying the dramatic climax of their brutal battle. The scene then shifted, introducing a new conversation where one warrior asked another what he would do against an opponent he absolutely couldn't defeat. The older, bearded warrior pondered the question, a thoughtful escaping his lips. The younger warrior stood by, awaiting a profound answer to his difficult hypothetical. The bearded warrior reflected on the idea of facing an adversary he simply could not overcome. The younger warrior pressed further, asking what if someone with power truly equal to his own were to appear. The bearded warrior, his expression grim and resolute, responded with a rhetorical question, suggesting the answer was self-evident. Back on the battlefield, our boy stood victorious over the fallen antagonist, the fight now decisively over. The defeated antagonist lay still, his once glowing eyes now dim, the last vestiges of his power fading away. Our boy, having proven his strength in the most brutal way, confidently declared himself the strongest. This was only the beginning. Yu Chen-seok, a rookie hunter, had just performed a solo clear of a Grade 2 corrosion rift, a feat that would soon echo across the globe. The intense battle had concluded, leaving him standing amidst the fading ethereal remnants of the defeated corruption. As the last vestiges of the rift dissolved, a brilliant reward chest materialized before him, shimmering with potent energy. He reached out, his hand nearing the chest, a quiet anticipation building within him for what treasures it might hold. Pulling open the lid, he retrieved a short, golden blade, its size making him wonder if it was truly meant to be a spear. As he held the weapon, mana instinctively flowed from his hand, and the blade began to extend, growing longer and more formidable. The once small item transformed into a magnificent spear, its elongated form now clearly a powerful weapon. He examined the completed spear with a keen eye, acknowledging its undeniable usefulness in future encounters. Our boy then secured the new weapon, a fleeting thought crossing his mind about the potential rewards he could have gathered if he had brought others along. His gaze then shifted to his own trusty sword, considering its condition after countless battles. He wondered if Hansung A's sword, the one he had borrowed, was still in one piece. Back in his room, the sheer exhaustion from his recent ordeal finally caught up to him, and he collapsed into a deep, much-needed sleep. He rested profoundly, his body and mind recovering from the intense strain of the rift. Suddenly, a sharp noise or a subtle shift in the room jolted him awake, his eyes snapping open. He looked around, still groggy, trying to orient himself in the quiet space. It was Han Sang-ah who approached him, carrying a sword she had found on her way back. She offered the blade to him, a simple gesture of gratitude for his previous actions. He took the sword, a genuine surprise coloring his face as he recognized its exceptional quality. Just as he was about to express his thanks, the overwhelming fatigue resurfaced, and he slumped forward, passing out cold. He simply fainted, his body unable to fight the exhaustion any longer. Han Sang-ah looked down at him with a mix of concern and understanding, realizing the toll the rift clear had taken. Outside his quiet room, the news of his unprecedented solo clear spread like wildfire, becoming the talk of every street and city. His image was broadcast on large screens, his face now instantly recognizable as the rookie hunter who had achieved the impossible. The city buzzed with the news, everyone talking about the mysterious hunter. Even within the confines of his room, he could sense the buzz, the world outside now keenly aware of his existence. As he sat, a soft knock at his door signaled another shift in his newfound reality. Jia Sujong, an elegant woman from the Secretariat of Embargo Tower, entered, her presence bringing a new air to his private space. She moved with a quiet confidence, taking in his surroundings. He listened to her, a hint of suspicion in his eyes, sensing that her visit was more than a courtesy call. A small, knowing smile played on her lips, confirming his suspicions that she had an agenda. Cutting to the chase, he plainly asked what she truly wanted from him. Her unexpected response was an offer of cake, a seemingly innocent gesture that completely disarmed him. He accepted the treat, eating it thoughtfully as she began to explain her purpose. She spoke of a shield generator, a revolutionary device capable of creating barriers against corrosion creatures, and explained that Embargo Tower needed him to transport a prototype. The mission, she detailed, was critical for humanity's future, and he listened, understanding the gravity of the task. She revealed they were also reaching out to other elite hunters for cooperation. Our boy looked over the mission documents, noting with surprise that even the powerful Janabi organization had agreed to assist. She outlined the complex transport route, a train journey from Vladivostok to the Netherlands, then a helicopter to Dover in the UK for a test run. The reason for such a long route, she explained, was the chaotic state of Europe, where warlord-like hunter companies now controlled vast regions. He listened, his expression growing serious as he grasped the full extent of the danger involved. She then asked if he had any experience with international travel, a question that struck him as oddly specific. She offered another small smile, confirming her suspicion that he had not. Still eating his cake, he simply affirmed that he had never traveled this far before. He then presented his own condition. Han Sang-ah, the trustworthy friend who had accompanied him to Tsushima Island, must join the mission. Jia Sujong looked at him, surprised by his demand, but he simply smiled, confident in his choice and her abilities. She quickly agreed, seeing the value in his request, and expressed her anticipation for the collaboration. Soon after, he found himself aboard a helicopter, the city lights receding below him as he embarked on this new, high-stakes journey. The chairman of the Hunter Association was also present, his gaze fixed on our boy, acknowledging the rapid rise of the rookie hunter. As he stepped out of the helicopter, the chairman greeted him, a hint of admiration in his voice for the impossible feats he had accomplished. They stood together for a moment, the weight of their combined influence palpable in the air. That's when he noticed Hunter Lee Seun, another formidable figure, already waiting. She offered him a cool greeting, noting how his fame had spread far and wide. The chairman then turned to a more pressing matter, discussing how the military was also involved in the Embargo Tower request. Our boy looked at the chairman, a silent question in his eyes about his true motivations and allegiances. He wondered if the chairman truly desired an end to this wretched, monster-ridden world, or if he secretly preferred the current status quo that empowered hunters. The chairman then shifted the conversation, asking if he knew about the descendants of Dangun, an ultra-nationalist group. Lee Seon listened closely, her expression unreadable. He confirmed his awareness, recalling his recent encounter with them on Tsushima Island. She explained that this Korean-only group was causing widespread interference in rifts, their actions fueled by a particular ideology. He understood their perspective, even if he didn't agree with their methods. The chairman then offered him a small, wrapped pumpkin taffy, a curious and unexpected gesture. He took the sweet, a flicker of confusion crossing his face at the unexpected gift. The chairman then repeated the question Ja Soo-jong had asked if he had ever traveled to another country before. Our boy, taken aback by the repeated inquiry, confirmed once more that this would be his very first journey of such a distance. The chairman looked at him, a knowing smile playing on his lips, hinting that this mission would be far more than just a simple transport. This perilous journey, he implied, was destined to open his eyes to a much broader and more complex reality. Yu Chan-seok found himself caught in a high-stakes mission that would determine the fate of many. The atmosphere in the meeting room was tense, filled with the weight of an impending, perilous task. Ja Soo-jong, the representative from Embargo Tower, calmly laid out the initial details of their complex operation. A major general in camouflage listened intently, his expression serious as the gravity of the situation became clear. Our boy received his briefing materials, recognizing the immense challenge ahead of them. She then announced the official start of the meeting, ready to delve into the specifics. The Major General took the floor to present the operational plan. The mission involved a long journey, spanning over 2 weeks, with multiple train cars allocated for various personnel. 15 cars were reserved for the participating hunters, ensuring they had adequate rest during the arduous trip. She added that the 10th-ranked hunter, Lee Seon, would receive an entire car to herself, a privilege reflecting her status. Our boy acknowledged the special treatment, understanding the stark difference in status among hunters. She then detailed that Embargo Tower had assigned a small group, including a hunter named Janabi, to protect the crucial shield generator car. The Major General, however, interrupted, suggesting additional military personnel should share the protection duty due to the mission's length and expected fatigue. He watched as the two leaders debated the critical security arrangements. Ja Soo-jong's expression hardened as she prepared to firmly reject his suggestion. The Major General's eyes narrowed, sensing her coming refusal. She asserted that the fact Janabi was responsible meant many forces would be targeting it. Therefore, no one except Janabi was permitted to approach the generator. The other military personnel in the room seemed surprised by the strictness of her command. Her gaze was unwavering, leaving no room for further discussion on the matter. He reluctantly agreed to move on, recognizing her authority. The Major General then shifted to outlining the expected threats along their long route from Vladivostok to the Netherlands. She listened with a slight smirk, commenting that it sounded like a Western movie with train robbers. Our boy absorbed the information, a sense of unease starting to settle in. Beyond corrosion zones and Siberian bandits, 5 of the 8 European warlords they contacted had not responded, making them potential enemies. The other officers visibly reacted to the overwhelming number of threats they would face over the 2-week mission. One of them questioned if such a mission could even succeed, given the odds. Ja Soo-jung, however, remained unfazed, a confident smile playing on her lips. She bowed to ensure the train arrived safely, no matter the obstacles. The day for Operation D-Day finally arrived, marking the start of their perilous journey. Vladivostok station was bustling with activity as people prepared to board. Passengers were directed to their respective trains, a mix of civilians and those involved in the mission. Our boy arrived, his cape gently swaying in the wintry air, ready for the long ride. He observed the train, noting its imposing presence and the sheer scale of the operation. He spotted Han Sung-ga, another hunter, who had also arrived early. He mentioned that he had secured a luxury car for her, as she hadn't made a request. Ja Soo-jung, already inside, reflected on Lee Si-yoon's special treatment, attributing it to her world-class status. Our boy and Han Sung-ga watched the other hunters, recognizing the clear hierarchy. Ja Soo-jung then approached him, noting his early arrival. He simply replied that he had just gotten there himself. He remarked on the extensive effort Embargo Tower had put into the train security. The interior of the train was indeed heavily fortified, designed for battle. Han Sanga wondered if such overt security might actually make it a more obvious target. Our boy considered her point, acknowledging the potential double-edged nature of the fortifications. He explained that the train was made of depleted uranium, like armored vehicles, making it incredibly safe. He concluded that with Lee Seon also participating, failure seemed unlikely. The train began its journey, departing from the station and heading into the vast, snowy landscape. Suddenly, a hunter cried out for backup, signaling the start of an unexpected attack. Our boy immediately responded, rushing towards the commotion, a grim determination on his face. Corrosion creatures had attacked the train less than 10 minutes after its departure. He found himself in a relentless battle, slicing through the creatures, but they just kept coming. He lamented that the fight would be far easier if Lee Seon were there with them. However, Lee Seon had been assigned to protect the railway repair crew, who were working to fix the damaged Trans-Siberian Railway. The repair crew, unable to fight, needed constant protection from the corrosion creatures. This meant their top fighter was tied down, unable to use her full power in the main battle. Our boy cursed the plan, imagining himself blowing off the head of whoever came up with such a foolish strategy. The endless swarm of creatures made it clear this would indeed be a very long day. Far away in Khabarovsk, Russia, a large, monstrous creature lay defeated in the snow. Nikolai Baranov, a formidable figure, surveyed his catch, grumbling about the effort it took. Lee Hyun arrived, asking Baranov for a job, hinting at his own significant power. Baranov described the job: breach a specific train car carrying a shield generator, protected by Lee Seon. Lee Hyun grinned, finding the challenge of robbing a train protected by Lee Seon quite appealing. He declared his intent to not only smash the cargo, but to kill all the remaining hunters right in front of Lee Seon's eyes. His menacing face conveyed a chilling promise of the terror he was about to unleash. Lee Seon, a rookie hunter, found himself in a chaotic battle, effortlessly dispatching hundreds of monsters that threatened the world. His sheer power was a shocking display, an intense burst of combat prowess that left the other, more experienced hunters utterly stunned. They watched him, two men in suits, one with a staff, their faces etched with a mix of surprise and growing concern. From his confident stance, Lee Seon heard their whispers, remarking that he seemed more like a monster than the creatures they were fighting. Once the area was mostly cleared, the other hunters slumped to the ground, exhausted and battered, their weapons lying uselessly beside them. Lee Seon, observing their fatigue, couldn't help but conclude that he would have to consider the rest of this mission a solo fight. He called out to the remaining group, Han Sanga among them, urging them to get up, their figures small against the vast, snowy landscape. Our protagonist then reminded them that the mission was far from over, and they couldn't let their guard down, singling out Han Sanga, acknowledging her as the only useful one. A sudden unsettling shift in the atmosphere caught his attention, pulling his confident smile into a furrowed brow of concern. The ground shook violently, and a massive impact struck the side of their train, sending shards of ice and snow flying into the air. Lee Seon listened intently as the control room reported an obstacle detected, but insisted they would proceed with normal operations despite the danger. His eye glowed with an ominous green as he relayed his own urgent message to the control room, his voice cutting through the panic. With a fierce determination, he gave a direct command: stop the train. From the exterior, more blue energy impacts peppered the train, confirming his suspicion that this was no mere avalanche, but an enemy attack. A powerful red energy blast then slammed into the train with a devastating force, making the entire structure shudder. Lee Seon, quick as thought, skillfully deflected the incoming attack with his weapon, a flash of purple energy shielding them. He immediately countered, sending a powerful energy blast of his own streaking back toward the source of the attack. A small, jetpack figure, surprisingly agile, managed to evade his counterattack, soaring away from the explosion. Han Sanga and another hunter exchanged bewildered glances, wondering aloud where these new enemies had come from and when they had arrived. The answer appeared on the horizon, a vast crowd of enemies, a veritable army, stretching across the snowy landscape in the distance. Before they could fully react, Lee Seon was suddenly enveloped in glowing seals, mystical talismans swirling around him, trapping him mid-motion. He struggled within the confines of the luminous energy, his powers bound, his expression shifting to one of growing alarm. Han Sanga watched, her face etched with worry and surprise, as their powerful commander was rendered completely helpless. A grim realization dawned on our boy, his eyes widening as the full extent of his predicament became clear. He was fully encased in the glowing, hexagonal seals, a prison of light holding him immobile against his will. With a sharp intake of breath, Li Xiong declared the inescapable truth: he had been sealed. Han Sanga, despite her concern, quickly took charge, her voice ringing out clearly to all hunters: they were under enemy attack. The other hunters reacted with shock and disbelief, their faces a mixture of fear and confusion at the sudden turn of events. The grim reality hit them hard. An estimated 500 enemies, 10 times their current fighting force, were bearing down on them. Despite the overwhelming odds and their commander's absence, Han Sanga firmly stated that retreating was not an option and commanded them to protect the train. With a fierce determination etched onto her face, she added a chilling second command: and hunt. Li Xiong, no longer sealed, immediately jumped off the train, a daring leap into the snowy battlefield below. Han Sanga followed close behind, running across the icy ground, ready to face the overwhelming force. Other hunters expressed their concern, arguing that they couldn't just send out the rookies against such an army. Han Sanga, however, was resolute, her body emanating a subtle power, her focus entirely on the imminent battle. A new figure then appeared: Li Haiyuan, dressed in traditional Korean attire, a streak of blood staining his sash. Li Xiong confronted him, his expression cold, asking if this sealing was his doing, demanding an answer. Haiyun, with a surprising smile, revealed himself as a descendant of Dangun, just like Li Seon, even claiming to be his 10th cousin. He maintained his pleasant demeanor, remarking on the joyous occasion of meeting family in a foreign land. During the exchange, Li Xiyun's sword, a powerful instrument, suddenly broke apart with a crackle of electrical energy. Xion looked down at the shattered pieces in disbelief, muttering, "It broke?" Li Haiyun, waving dismissively, taunted him, suggesting he surrender now that he was disarmed, believing his seal was unbreakable. But to Haiyun's visible annoyance, Li Xiyun's sword instantly regenerated in his hands, piecing itself back together. Haiyun let out a sharp teach, his pleasant facade cracking under the unexpected turn of events. Li Xian, now holding his restored glowing sword, challenged Haiyun, asking if he knew what this item was. Their eyes met in a tense stare, a silent acknowledgement of the power now back in Xian's possession. Xian then revealed that the item was the mirror ring, a powerful artifact that could duplicate a registered piece of equipment the moment it broke. He then sarcastically remarked that Haiyun wouldn't be popular with the ladies, provoking a flash of anger and glowing eyes from his relative. The true scale of the threat was undeniable, as the vast enemy army stretched before them, a seemingly endless wave of hostile figures. Li Xiyun and the remaining hunters looked out at the overwhelming force, a moment of quiet before the storm. A confident smile spread across Li Seon's face, a sign that he was ready for the impossible fight ahead. Their leader, Nikolai, flew above them in a powerful jetpack suit, boasting that he would decide who lived and who died in this conflict. Nikolai, his face twisted into a menacing grin, demanded their immediate surrender, promising to spare their lives if they complied. Han Sanga and another hunter observed Nikolai, noting something peculiar about his powerful flight. Another hunter explained that Nikolai's suit was a product of the Predator project from 10 years ago, specifically designed for mana-less combat. Han Sanga's face showed her internal struggle, grappling with the profound reality of fighting and killing other humans. Her worry was clear, a visible testament to the moral dilemma she faced as the battle loomed. Li Xiong, his back to her, offered a stark choice. If she didn't think she could handle it, she should simply go back. But Sanga's eye hardened with resolve. She had never fought humans before either, but they were trying to kill them anyway. She looked at the approaching army, accepting that there was no real difference between these enemies and the corrosion creatures they usually fought. With a renewed sense of purpose, Han Sanga ran forward, joining the fray, ready to face the overwhelming odds. Li Xiong, his eyes reflecting a chilling pragmatism amidst splatters of blood, offered a final, grim piece of advice: the guilt would fade. He assured her it would fade away in a few days, at most a month, leaving a disturbing question about the true cost of survival. Yu Chen-seok found himself in a brutal fusion fantasy battle, where world saving was a unique, often bloody, skill. He heard the desperate screams of people, their shouts echoing through the frigid air around him. The metallic clang of weapons clashing filled his ears, a chaotic symphony of destruction and desperate struggle. Bits of flesh and guts spilled out onto the frozen ground, painting the snow a gruesome, visceral red. Rivers of blood flowed down, staining everything in its path, a stark and chilling reminder of the carnage. It was a murky, violent whirlwind of human emotions, a storm of despair and rage swirling all around him. He found the entire scene truly disgusting, a vile and abhorrent display of humanity's worst instincts. Yet, a darker thought crept into his mind. A piece of trash like him felt disturbingly at home in this horror. He stood amidst the fallen, a silent figure in the bloody aftermath, the weight of the battle heavy on him. A deep, unsettling sound resonated within him, mirroring the turmoil of the battlefield and his own soul. This brutal reality was the grim setting for a hero whose world-saving was a unique, often brutal, skill. With a sharp, determined focus, he prepared himself for the next wave, his resolve unwavering. As expected, they held the upper hand in skill, but the sheer numbers of their enemies were overwhelming. Their momentum was pushing his side back relentlessly, slowly but surely, losing ground in the fierce fight. There was only one decisive way to turn the tide, a desperate gamble that could change everything. A fierce determination burned in his eyes as he committed to the dangerous plan, ready to act. He decided to take down the enemy commander, the linchpin of their opponent's forces. The formidable commander stood tall, a menacing figure holding one of their own hostage. A heavy, oppressive aura emanated from the commander, signaling his immense power and threat. The commander paused, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Huh, you," he uttered, recognizing his foe. "It's you, isn't it?" the commander continued. "That rookie from Korea." Yu Chanseok mused internally, wondering if even Russian thugs now knew his name. His reputation was spreading fast, reaching even these far-flung, brutal corners of the world. With a sudden, swift movement, Yu Chanseok launched his attack, a blur of motion. His assault was relentless, a flurry of precise strikes aimed at his powerful opponent. Each blow landed with incredible force, creating bright sparks against the commander's formidable armor. The commander reacted with a mix of disbelief and disdain, scoffing at Chanseok's perceived lack of distinction. "Is Korea really this lacking in talent?" the commander sneered, trying to get under his skin. Yu Chanseok's blade glowed with intense energy, proving his skill far surpassed any rookie label. Despite his insults, the commander inwardly conceded that this opponent was both fast and surprisingly strong. The commander's suit was incredibly tough, deflecting blows that would normally scratch anything with ease. Yu Chanseok maintained his intense focus, analyzing every move and weakness of his opponent. He realized he was facing a tricky opponent, one who wouldn't fall easily. It would not be an easy victory, a challenging fight lay ahead for him. That was, of course, if he hadn't already acquired new skills from his journey to Tsushima Island. With a powerful surge, Yu Chanseok unleashed his new abilities, a wave of energy radiating from him. The two fighters clashed fiercely, their battle a whirlwind of blows and defensive maneuvers. "You, son of a bitch," the commander snarled, clearly enraged by Chanseok's unexpected power. "I'll finish you off with this," the commander roared, preparing for a decisive attack. He launched a heavy, powerful blow, intending to end the fight then and there. The attack landed with a deafening impact, shaking the very ground beneath them. Yu Chanseok braced himself, deflecting the blow with a surge of his own energy. He noticed something peculiar. Despite his threats, the commander was controlling his firepower. A question formed in Chanseok's mind. Why would his opponent hold back in such a crucial fight? Could he be worried about damaging the shield generator, a vital piece of equipment? Chanseok's mind raced, connecting the dots and looking for a pattern in the chaos of the battle. He then wondered if the earlier attack was simply meant to stop the train, not destroy it. If Lee Si-yeon hadn't been there, the attack would have shattered everything, highlighting her critical role. This raised a chilling suspicion. Did these guys know in advance who was participating in this mission? The Russian alpha in a Korean military suit and the SEAL master appearing with perfect timing were all deeply suspicious. Yo Chanseok's gaze hardened, his resolve to uncover the truth intensifying amidst the ongoing fight. There were more than just one or two suspicious things. A larger conspiracy was clearly at play. He lunged forward with a powerful, focused attack, determined to press his advantage. The commander gasped, "What is this?" as Chanseok's new purple-hued power manifested. Yu Chanseok declared his intent to burn through his power's durability, to end this fight as fast as possible. He struck with overwhelming force, his glowing attacks pushing the commander back relentlessly. "You!" the commander exclaimed, utterly shocked by the unexpected intensity. "Little rat!" the commander cursed, his frustration boiling over as he struggled against the onslaught. Chanseok moved with incredible speed, leaving a bright blue trajectory in his wake, a blur of motion. It was a 16-hit combo, each strike precise and devastating, a testament to his mastery. He finished with a powerful cannon-like punch, a final explosive blow that sealed his opponent's fate. A visible crack appeared in the commander's suit, a critical hit that left him stunned and reeling. "I need to fall back and buy some time," the commander realized, attempting to disengage from the battle. "Wait, don't you need to break Candy Lady's seal?" The commander desperately tried to bargain. Yu Chanseok looked on, his expression cold and indifferent to the commander's desperate pleas. "If you stop attacking, I can help you," the commander offered, hoping to save himself from defeat. But Chanseok showed no mercy, delivering another swift and decisive blow, silencing the commander's words. The commander's armored suit began to crack and shatter under the relentless assault, his desperate pleas falling on deaf ears. Our boy simply looked on with a cold, unyielding gaze, stating that he had no need for such help. Standing victorious, Yu Chanseok made it clear that some battles were meant to be fought alone, because Lee Sion could handle that all by herself. Yu Chanseok, a hunter on a critical mission, found himself on a train serving as a command center, reeling from heavy losses. 5 were dead and 10 wounded, diminishing their combat power by a third after the last brutal engagement. The situation was dire, with the commander emphasizing how considerably their forces had been depleted right from the start of their journey. First aid was immediately administered to the injured hunters, a temporary measure until they could reach their destination. Proper medical treatment, the commander explained, would only be possible once they arrived in Warsaw, Poland. He instructed his team to contact the local warlord, Mazurka, in advance. They also needed to reach out to the hunter guild contracted with Mazurka, asking for their cooperation and hoping they would comply. One of the soldiers expressed doubt, wondering if those warlords would truly cooperate so easily with their request. The woman leading the mission, her eyes sharp and determined, declared with unwavering confidence that they would have to. Their cooperation was non-negotiable, she asserted, if they wanted any help from Janabi and her in the future. The journey continued, taking them deeper into the war-torn landscape, toward a new challenge that awaited them. Their destination was Poland, specifically the headquarters of the hunter guild known as Esprit, a formidable organization. Robert Digny, a partner hunter affiliated with Esprit, moved with a swagger through the guild hall when he heard the news. Upon hearing that Janabi had requested cooperation, he erupted in anger, his face contorting in fury. He shouted, demanding to know who she thought she was, ordering him around like that, his disrespect clear to everyone present. His outburst drew the attention of other hunters, who began to gather, murmuring amongst themselves. A woman in the crowd stepped forward, stating firmly that the Candy Lady was different, not just any hunter. She recounted how, if it weren't for the foundation established by the Candy Lady, she would never have become a hunter herself. Another hunter echoed her sentiments, explaining that the Candy Lady had paid for his mother's surgery in Korea. A third hunter shared his own story, how she had saved him when he was injured in a corrosion rift, preventing him from being abandoned. Robert's face tightened with rage as he was confronted by the loyalty and gratitude of his fellow hunters. The leader of Esprit, a man with a calm demeanor, approached Robert, whispering a warning. He reminded Robert that if this many people quit at once, the company would be in serious trouble. Robert's eyes blazed with fury, but he knew he was cornered, forced to comply with the request. Meanwhile, the main character, Yu Chanseok, looked out the train window, his expression thoughtful. He mused that the injured hunters were in worse condition than he had initially thought, a heavy burden on his mind. They still had at least 5 days to reach Warsaw, and he wondered if the injured would be able to hold on until then. He could only hope that there wouldn't be any further delays, a silent prayer for a smooth journey. Suddenly, an urgent announcement blared through the train. Corrosion creatures were pursuing them. The message repeated, emphasizing the immediate danger. Slimes were pursuing the train. Panic began to spread among the passengers and hunters as the gravity of the situation became clear. Yuo Chen-sok turned to a nearby hunter asking what a slime was, unfamiliar with the specific threat. Another hunter quickly explained that slimes were grade 1 corrosion creatures from Bratsk, a city known as the Refrigerator. Confusion rippled through the group. Bratsk was over 600 kilometers away, making their presence here inexplicable. The main character, now on the roof of the train, grimly realized that the corrosion zone must have expanded significantly. Dealing with grade 1 corrosion creatures in their current weakened state would be incredibly difficult, she acknowledged, her expression somber. She warned everyone about the slime's dangerous properties. Their body temperature was similar to liquid nitrogen, freezing and shattering any equipment upon incorrect contact. Hunters began to fire arrows, but the projectiles simply bounced off the slimes, having no effect. The horrifying realization dawned on them. Some of the slimes possessed mana resistance, rendering their magical attacks useless. A hunter voiced the grim conclusion that mana attacks wouldn't work, leaving them with very few options. Another hunter yelled in despair that since normal arrows had no effect, there was essentially no way to deal damage. The main character's face hardened. If they couldn't stop the slimes, the mission was a failure. Just then, Yuo Chen-sok stepped forward, offering to try something different with his bow. He instructed a nearby hunter on how to properly gather mana at the arrow's tip and trace the mana trajectory. The main character, recognizing his unique approach, muttered his name, Yuo Chen-seok. With a determined expression, Yuo Chen-seok drew his bow, an arrow glowing with dark purple energy. He released the arrow, a powerful shot that pierced through the air with incredible speed. The arrow struck a slime, and to everyone's astonishment, its mana resistance shattered. The slime began to dissolve, its icy form melting away under the mysterious energy of the arrow. The hunters watched in stunned silence, unable to believe that the mana resistance had been broken. Yuo Chen-seok explained that while it would be easier to cover the entire field with his paradox flame, he wasn't confident he could control it. He then instructed the other hunters to attack once the black flames on the slimes died down a bit, as the effect would spread among them anyway. The main character watched him with a complex expression, remembering his unique skill that could erase formless concepts. He truly was an unfathomable individual. She didn't hesitate, immediately moving into action, her own formidable power now unleashed. She cut through the dissolving slimes with ease, her blade a blur of motion. With incredible agility, she leaped onto the roof of the train, ready to face the remaining threats. She continued her assault, slicing through more slimes as they continued their relentless pursuit. She looked back, confirming that the path was clear. They could now take these creatures down. But then, a hunter cried out, pointing ahead. There was just one slime left, a massive one, rapidly approaching the train. Her eyes widened in alarm as the colossal slime jumped high into the air, its immense shadow falling over the train. At this rate, the enormous creature would crush them all, obliterating the train and everyone aboard. Her face was grim, knowing that while they might be able to cut it, the slime was far too big and their equipment would be destroyed in the process. Yuo Chen-seok looked up, his expression serious. There seemed to be no conventional way to survive this onslaught. The main character stared at him, contemplating the lethal, extreme cold and overwhelming power emanating from the monster. Yuo Chen-seok raised his serrated sword, preparing for a desperate final strike. He brought his blade down with impossible speed and force, aiming for the core of the monstrous slime. The overwhelming power of his strike turned the impossible possible, transforming the colossal creature into mere dust. A relieved smile touched the main character's lips, a rare display of admiration for his incredible feat. Even the short-haired hunter who had been covered in slime earlier was smiling, a testament to the brief but profound impact of Yuo Chen-seok's power. Yuo Chen-seok, now covered in the remnants of the slime, casually remarked that he liked cola-flavored candy, the slime tasting like it. Yuo Chen-seok was on a world-saving mission, navigating a harsh reality where the train he commanded fended off attacks across Siberia. Under Lee Seon's command, the train steadily made its way toward Poland, a journey fraught with danger. Inside the train, a vital meeting was taking place, outlining the next steps of their challenging journey. The Mazurka warlords and their contracted hunter company had already promised cooperation, offering a glimmer of hope. This news brought a small measure of relief, signaling one less immediate concern for the group. However, when asked about further transport cooperation, other warlords remained silent, leaving the team to keep trying. The group was scheduled to stay in Warsaw for a few days anyway, providing some time to address these unresolved issues. Upon arrival at Warsaw Central Station, Chanseok heard the murmurs of the crowd who had believed Poland was a safer place. The grim reality of their destination was immediately apparent, a scene of widespread desolation. Indeed, the train station was littered with corpses, a stark and unsettling sight. Beyond the station, there were barely any traces of vegetation left, suggesting a desperate struggle for resources. Lee Seon and the other veteran hunters, however, seemed completely unfazed, making Chanseok wonder if this was the new normal. As Chanseok observed the scene, a man in a military uniform approached him. The man introduced himself as Warrant Officer Joseph Polanski of Mazurka, surprisingly speaking fluent Korean. Polanski offered to escort Chanseok to his lodging, leading him away from the station. As they drove, Chanseok noticed everyone moving separately, realizing that lodgings were assigned based on rank. Polanski, knowing Chanseok was a freelance hunter, directly proposed he consider working long-term in Poland. He admitted the infrastructure wasn't like Korea's, but promised Chanseok would wield far more power here. Polanski spoke of a power that allowed him to casually offer luxuries like limousines and champagne, even with bodies outside. He went further, suggesting that if Chanseok worked with them, he could have anything he wanted, even people to beat for fun. Chanseok's face tightened with disgust, and he silently wondered if he could actually punch this man. He was then shown to his lodging, which turned out to be little more than a cheap motel room. He noted that it wasn't dirty, a small comfort, but his assigned meals consisted solely of instant food. As he began to prepare some instant ramen, a knock came at the door, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Jo Soo-jung, asking if he was inside, her voice a little hesitant. She looked at him shyly, hinting that she had a small favor to ask. Soo-jung had come to use his shower, explaining that her own lodging had a shared bathroom with rusty water. Chanseok, ever pragmatic, didn't mind, saying that helping each other was the very point of being acquaintances. While she showered, he asked her a question that had been bothering him. Why were all the food supplies he sold Korean-made? Soo-jung paused, considering her words carefully before answering. She explained that it was due to a specific policy enforced by the Korean government. Chanseok reacted with a sharp intake of breath, clearly surprised by this revelation. She elaborated that Korea prioritized importing rare minerals, fossil fuels, and produce from other countries. After consuming what they needed domestically, they would then sell the remaining supplies back to those same foreign nations. Chanseok found it astonishing that other countries cooperated so willingly with such an arrangement. Soo-jung explained that getting on the Korean government's bad side meant losing cooperation from hunters, a critical resource. She clarified that farming and mining now simply couldn't be done without the protection of hunters. Therefore, countries had no choice but to comply with Korea's outrageous demands if they wanted to survive. As a result, the supplies that traveled from Europe to Korea and then back were often low-quality goods, like years-old canned food. Chanseok then asked about the quality of the relief supplies they were currently transporting. Soo-jung revealed that the relief supplies on the train were called recycled compound powder, No. 65. Chanseok was taken aback, repeating the strange name, recycled compound powder. It was discarded food waste that had been dried at high temperatures and then ground up. The No. 65 meant it contained 65% recycled organic matter, a grim substitute for proper food. Soo-jung knew Korea had the capacity to provide much better food ingredients. But she explained that if they sent food with actual value, it would never reach the people who truly needed it, instead falling into the hands of warlords. Chanseok finally understood Lee Se-yoon's earlier words, realizing he had been thinking too complacently about the world. As he cleaned his weapon, a clear sense of purpose solidified within him, a determination born from the sheer injustice. He approached Jo Soo-jung, his gaze sharp, asking her for the location of the closest uncooperative warlord. she answered without hesitation. Hamburg, Germany. Without a moment's delay, Chan Seok was on the move, his determination now a palpable force. Meanwhile, in Hamburg, the German warlord leader, Kaiser Daniel Louis, received troubling news about a Korean hunter. Yu Chan Seok was running wild, aggressively demanding to know why they weren't cooperating with the train's operation. Chan Seok was already in action, striking down one of Louis's guards with brutal efficiency. Louis, enraged, threatened to formally protest to the Korean Hunter Association if Chan Seok laid another hand on his men. He lashed out, calling Chan Seok a son of a bitch and demanding if he truly wished to die. Chan Seok, unfazed, simply told him that if he was going to kill, he should do it properly. That, Chan Seok declared, was the only way Louis would survive this encounter. Lee Seun, a Korean hunter, found himself seeking an uncooperative warlord in the Grand Warsaw Royal Castle. This was all happening 3 hours before the most recent events, a tense flashback to the roots of a brewing conflict. Even though he was quite busy, Lee Seon walked with purpose through the opulent halls, seeking answers. He met with Han Sanga, another skilled hunter, whose presence hinted at important unfolding information. Standing before each other, a quiet tension hung in the air as Lee Seon listened to what she had to say. Han Sanga revealed that she had faced members of the descendants of Dangun in Tsushima, finding them quite strange. Lee Se-yeon's expression was one of surprise, wondering why she hadn't shared this crucial detail with him sooner. With a decisive gesture, Han Sanga placed her papers on the table, signaling that her mind was already made up about these difficult people. Lee Se-yeon admitted that he couldn't see himself getting along with such individuals either, a sentiment Han Sanga was glad to hear. She confirmed her satisfaction with his decision, understanding that their paths were aligned in this particular matter. The two hunters discussed their past, recalling a request they had carried out together in Tsushima, which had forged a certain understanding between them. Guiyang Group, another hunter, arrived and informed Commander Lee Se-yeon of Han Sanga's presence, bringing new energy to the room. Lee Se-yeon asked about their joint request in Tsushima, sensing that Han Sanga likely shared his critical thoughts on the ongoing world situation. Han Sanga, observing the grim reality of Warsaw, confessed that she had struggled to believe the situation even after seeing it with her own eyes. Jumyang Group responded with a somber reflection, acknowledging that without being a hunter, she might have lived her entire life unaware of the true state of the world. Han Sanga's face tightened with resolve, stating plainly that she simply could not accept the current, desperate circumstances. Lee Se-yeon, with a serious expression, advised her to focus on the immediate tasks at hand, as there was little else they could do for the broader issues. He then announced his intention to handle a particular matter directly, surprising the others with his bold declaration. Lee Se-yeon, with a knowing look, explained his decision to take the helm as an independent hunter, seeing no other viable path forward. Han Sanga expressed her anxiety about his unconventional way, questioning if they couldn't simply suppress the warlords with force. Lee Se-yeon clarified that diplomacy and public image prevented such direct action, leaving him as the sole agent for a more extreme method. Han Sanga's face etched with worry, wondering if he would truly be okay undertaking such a dangerous mission alone. Lee Se-yeon departed with a confident stride, assuring them he would resolve the issue before their current mission in Poland concluded. Gumyang Group, still concerned, reminded him to focus on her teachings and be ready for her critique upon his return. Lee Se-yeon smiled, a subtle glint in his eye, and told her he would meet her in Germany once his task was complete. A military helicopter ascended into the sky, carrying the hunter towards his next formidable challenge, a journey into uncertainty. Meanwhile, Kaiser Daniel Louis, the German warlord, exuded arrogant confidence, his mana flaring, certain of his advantage. His soldiers stood ready, a formidable force surrounding him, reflecting his belief in their collective might. But then, Yu Chan Seok, the true protagonist, made his entrance, shattering the Kaiser's comfortable illusion of control. With breathtaking speed, Chan Seok moved, his actions so fluid and powerful that the Kaiser's men were thrown through the air. Chan Seok continued his assault, a blur of motion, dispatching the soldiers with an efficiency that bordered on supernatural. His eyes, cold and unwavering, showed no mercy, a clear sign of his absolute determination in this unexpected confrontation. In an instant, the Kaiser found himself on the ground, pinned by Chan Seok, his former confidence utterly shattered. Kaiser Daniel Lewis stared up, his face contorted in a mix of shock and terror, unable to comprehend the sudden shift in power. His remaining men, in a desperate, futile attempt, opened fire, their bullets useless against the formidable hunter. The relentless volley of gunfire filled the air, a cacophony of futility against an opponent far beyond their understanding. The Kaiser's face was a picture of utter disbelief, his eyes wide as he watched his forces crumble before him. Chanseok seized the Kaiser, his grip firm and inescapable, bringing an abrupt and brutal end to the skirmish. With the warlord held captive, Chanseok calmly offered him a choice, his voice carrying an unspoken threat that chilled the air. Sweat beaded on the Kaiser's face, his carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of his spear and humiliation. His eyes, once filled with authority, now reflected a desperate scramble for an answer, a way out of this impossible situation. Chanseok's gaze was utterly dismissive, his cold eyes conveying that he simply didn't care about the Kaiser's concerns regarding the aftermath. Later, in a stark tent, Chanseok offered the shaken Kaiser a drink, a strange gesture in the aftermath of their violent encounter. Chanseok explained that the dark liquid was merely a convenient substitute, the easiest thing to acquire in their desolate world. The Kaiser's expression was heavy with a deep-seated longing for the past, for a time when real cola was readily available. He took a sip, the bitter taste a stark reminder of his current, grim reality, far removed from any semblance of luxury. His eyes, reflecting the dim light of the tent, held a somber resignation, a profound weariness from years of struggle. The Kaiser then recounted the dire situation in Germany, describing it as even worse than Poland, with people living in tents and lacking basic necessities. Chanseok listened intently, his gaze drifting to a holographic map, understanding the global scale of the threat of Ristorante. The Kaiser's face was etched with desperation as he explained Germany's desperate need for the shield generator, even more than the UK. Chanseok, ever pragmatic, pointed out that if the Kaiser refused to cooperate, he would never receive the generator he so desperately needed. The Kaiser bristled, asserting that this was not a negotiation table, but a discussion between a captive and his captor. Chanseok's profile was unyielding, his message clear: cooperation was not an option, but a demand. The Kaiser, his defiance still simmering, questioned Chanseok's high-handed attitude, reiterating his lack of other options. Chanseok gripped the glass in his hand, a silent warning of the power he held and the consequences of further resistance. With a decisive motion, he crushed the glass, shards scattering, a visceral demonstration that his other option was not to be taken lightly. The Kaiser flinched, the sound of breaking glass a sharp reminder of Chanseok's ruthlessness and his own precarious position. Chanseok, with an almost casual air, stated that his role was merely to facilitate, like a matchmaker, not to discuss the intricate details of cooperation. The Kaiser, a flicker of suspicion in his eyes, wondered if the candy lady, referring to Lee Seon, had sent Chanseok to intervene. The Kaiser leaned back, a sudden realization dawning on him that Lee Seon would never have been so reckless, making Chanseok's presence all the more baffling. He extended a hand, attempting to dismiss Chanseok, telling him he would contact Lee Seon directly to resolve the matter. Chanseok simply smirked, refusing to leave, explaining that he wouldn't trust the Kaiser to keep his word if he turned his back. Then, with an unexpected gesture, Chanseok offered a small, cola-flavored candy as his lodging fee. The Kaiser looked at the candy with a mixture of confusion and surprise, unable to fathom its significance. Chanseok explained that he had obtained the candy the hard way after a difficult hunt against the slime, emphasizing its rarity. Han Sanga, back in Warsaw, stood deep in thought, processing the unsettling truths about the world's rapid decline. Yu Chanseok's eyes burned with resolve, declaring his intention to smash every threat and save the world, ensuring that someday everyone could enjoy real cola again. Yu Chanseok, a man with incredible perception, found himself navigating a world on the brink where even basic needs sparked chaos. The scene was a stark reminder of the widespread desperation, a constant murmur of unease hanging in the air around the Warsaw royal castle. In the long line for rations, people waited, their hunger a visible weight, as meager portions of thin soup were ladled into their bowls. One man, his face etched with frustration, clutched his bowl, unable to hide his growing anger at the dire situation. He erupted, demanding how they were supposed to survive on soup so watery the bottom of the bowl was clearly visible, his voice echoing with the despair of many. A soldier stepped in, sternly ordering the refugee to stop causing a disturbance and step back from the line. The man, however, only grew more defiant, expressing his bitter disappointment that even the South Korean military offered no real hope. Without hesitation, the soldiers received authorization to use force to suppress the citizen, their faces grim behind their masks. The man's rage boiled over as he accused them all of being the same kind of thugs as the corrupt government officials. His outburst was met with a sudden, sharp crack as a weapon discharged, a sound that cut through the tense quiet. A moment of stunned silence gave way to a pained cry as the man crumpled, clutching his chest. The crowd gasped, horrified, wondering if the soldiers had actually killed him over such a trivial matter. One of the soldiers quickly clarified that the man wasn't dead, they had only used salt bullets for suppression. The soldiers tried to maintain order, acknowledging everyone's difficult situation, but insisting that they couldn't give out large amounts of rations to everyone. They warned that any further disturbances would be met with the same salt bullets, a threat that sparked a dangerous realization in the crowd. The man who had been shot, now recovered, grinned slightly as he understood the implication. They couldn't actually kill them. This knowledge emboldened the desperate crowd, who began to push forward, ignoring the soldiers' warnings as their hunger overcame their fear. The situation quickly escalated into a chaotic scramble, with people fighting over the meager food, driven by days of starvation. The soldiers, overwhelmed by the surge, frantically requested backup from headquarters as the crowd turned into a full-blown riot. The aftermath was grim, with many suffering injuries, some severe, highlighting the desperate state of affairs. Inside headquarters, Lee Seon looked over stacks of forged ration tickets, a clear sign of the rampant corruption and desperation. She lamented the ongoing chaos and the severe lack of manpower needed to manage such a widespread crisis. Suddenly, a call came in, announcing an incoming message from the Kaiser warlord, a powerful figure in the ravaged world. Lee Seung, surprised, immediately ordered the message transferred, her expression shifting to one of anticipation. A subtle click confirmed the connection as she prepared to receive the crucial news. She introduced herself as Lee Seon of Janabi, a representative from South Korea, her voice calm and professional. On the other end, the Kaiser warlord congratulated Yoo Chan-seok on his success, implying a mission had been accomplished. The news was good. The Kaiser warlord would accept Janabi's request for cooperation, a significant step in their shared struggle. The journey took Yoo Chan-seok to Germany, to the heart of the Kaiser warlord's territory in Hamburg, a place of imposing architecture and solemn power. There, the warlord greeted Lee Seon, acknowledging her arrival in his grand, if somewhat desolate, domain. He then remarked with a hint of curiosity that she had sent quite a strange guy in Yoo Chan-seok, suggesting our hero's unique nature. Lee Seon, a composed figure with a blade strapped to her back, offered a polite greeting to Daniel, the Kaiser warlord. Daniel returned her gaze, a silent agreement passing between the two leaders as they acknowledged each other's presence. She expressed her gratitude for his cooperation, a diplomatic exchange setting the tone for their alliance. Meanwhile, Yoo Chan-seok was not idle. He was perched high above on a building, a silent guardian surveying the surroundings. A woman, light as air, floated down to him asking what he was doing up so high. Our boy calmly explained he was scouting the perimeter, then inquired what was happening. She informed him that Lee Seon was looking for him, a summons that cut short his surveillance. He acknowledged the message, preparing to descend from his vantage point. But just as he prepared to leave, a faint shimmer caught his eye, a subtle distortion in the air that no ordinary person would notice. He launched himself from the building, moving with incredible speed towards the anomaly. The woman called out to him, surprised, asking where he was going with such urgency. He landed with precision, his gaze fixed on the spot where he had seen the strange ripple. His eyes narrowed with certainty. Someone had definitely been there, leaving behind a subtle trace. He realized that after being spotted, the intruder had used mana to conceal their presence and escape. Though the trace was faint, Yoo Chan-seok could still perceive the lingering mana signature. He deduced that by following these mana traces, he could pinpoint the intruder's exact location. Surrounded by the subtle energy, he focused his perception, tracking the fading path. His gaze swept upwards. the mana leading him to an unexpected place. The intruder's location, he realized, was directly above him in the ceiling itself. With a powerful leap, he surged upwards, tearing through the structure to confront his hidden adversary. He burst through, noting the unique method of tearing through space. The intruder had used a new trick he hadn't seen before. His opponent, a man in the traditional hanbok with a wide hat, acknowledged Chanseok's quick perception in finding him. The intruder, Seok Jo-hum, a descendant of Dangun, declared that he would have to suppress Chanseok before proceeding with his own agenda. Janso observed his foe, musing on the unusual combination of traditional attire and a cane-like sword. He quickly corrected himself, realizing it wasn't a mere cane sword, but a flexible, whip-like calamus sword. The opponent attacked with incredible speed and agility, his calamus sword striking out in a flurry. Chanseok found himself overwhelmed, struggling to keep up with the barrage of bizarre movements. Despite the precision of the attacks, Chanseok noticed something extraordinary. The blows that should have landed were all being dodged. His opponent, completely at ease, even taunted him to put in a bit more effort. Then it hit our hero. The truth of the opponent's strange ability suddenly clicked into place. He realized the man was using clones, and when those clones merged, his speed and power significantly increased. The opponent confidently declared that Yu Chanseok would never be able to land a hit on his body, but our hero knew he was dead wrong about that. The world was under threat, and saving it was a skill few possessed, a heavy burden carried by those like Yu Chanseok. Our hero faced an enemy whose speed had surged dramatically after its divided clones merged into one formidable foe. He recognized this sudden burst of speed as an innate ability, a core part of the creature's very being. The true challenge, however, was its phasing technique, which allowed attacks to pass harmlessly through its form. From the enemy's confident demeanor, it was clear this phasing ability had never once been successfully countered before. But our boy was determined, convinced that this creature's streak of luck was about to abruptly end. The enemy, unaware of the impending shift, prepared for its next move with an air of unchallenged superiority. Across the battlefield, another hunter, Lee Hyun-sok, was growing increasingly frustrated, unable to land a single blow. He cursed, wondering aloud how they were ever supposed to kill these things if their attacks simply passed through. The enemy's eye gleamed with an almost mocking confidence, its form flickering as it evaded strikes. For a moment, the battle seemed unwinnable, a dance between solid blows and intangible forms. He watched, absorbing the fight, understanding the mechanics of their foe's baffling defense. The solution, he realized, lay not in brute force, but in a precise adjustment to his own combat rhythm. He knew he needed to match the exact timing of their phasing, a task requiring incredible precision and focus. He understood that these creatures weren't merely using mana to displace, but shifting their physical bodies to another dimension. This ability triggered with perfect synchronization the instant they were attacked, mirroring the speed of any incoming strike. The only way to bypass such a defense was to recalibrate his own attack speed, finding the precise window to strike. He moved, a blur of motion, his spear a streak against the enemy's shifting form. The speed of his strike was perfectly calibrated, a sudden, overwhelming surge that caught the enemy off guard. His focus was absolute, every muscle tensed, every intention singular, to land the decisive blow. The enemy was utterly stunned, its phasing ability momentarily failing to keep pace with his unexpected acceleration. It reeled back, its form solidifying for a split second, a window of vulnerability it never anticipated. A wave of confusion washed over the creature. It couldn't grasp how he had managed to bypass its defenses. It questioned our boy's true nature, wondering what kind of being could possess such an uncanny ability to adapt. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted in the distance, a fiery orange glow against the urban landscape. Our boy looked toward the blast, a grim understanding dawning on him about the timing of these events. He remarked, almost to himself, that it seemed his luck had indeed held out, though not in the way he expected. Just then, his communicator activated, an urgent signal cutting through the din of battle. The commander's voice crackled through, demanding he stop his current pursuit and return immediately. Our boy listened intently, his expression shifting from combat focus to one of grave concern. The commander explained the dire situation. A sarin gas bomb had been dropped in Hamburg's northern outskirts. This was no ordinary weapon, but a lethal poison gas that paralyzed the nervous system even in microscopic amounts. It was a dangerous substance, officially recorded as a forbidden weapon in the dark annals of war and terrorism. Once it began to spread, the entire affected area would instantly transform into a living hell for anyone caught within. Our boy absorbed the shocking news, his mind racing to process the implications of such a devastating attack. He gave a curt, "Got it," his voice firm with renewed determination. Then, with a decisive declaration, he added that he was already on his way. He launched himself forward, sprinting with incredible speed across the rooftops of the city. Each leap was powerful, a testament to his agility as he covered ground at an astonishing pace. The city blurred beneath him, a testament to the urgency of his new mission. Yet, a lingering question bothered him. Why didn't the enemy strike Hamburg directly if their goal was chaos? He suspected there was some other, deeper motive at play behind this calculated act of terror. The commander relayed the grim calculations from the South Korean military. They estimated the sarin gas would completely blanket Hamburg within 15 minutes, leaving little time. To prevent contamination, the relief supplies train was scheduled to depart for the Netherlands in just 5 minutes. He wondered if there were truly no other enemies involved in this complex operation. The commander confirmed that only one enemy remained, and Lee Seong was currently holding them off. Our boy quickly connected the dots, understanding the enemy's true objective. Their plan was to isolate Lee Seong from the train, leaving it vulnerable for an easier capture. He asked who Lee Seong was engaging in combat. The answer came. It was the archer they had previously encountered back in Tsushima. Lee Seong, a formidable warrior, was locked in an intense duel. She fought with a fierce determination, her movements sharp and decisive. The archer's arrows flew relentlessly, forcing Lee Seong to defend with incredible skill. Every parry, every dodge, was a display of her raw power and precision. Despite her efforts, the sheer volume of attacks seemed to be pushing her to her limits. She held her ground, but the pressure was clearly mounting. Inside the train, the relief supplies had been fully loaded, a critical cargo for the affected areas. The crew urged everyone to hurry and board, recognizing the ticking clock. With all personnel confirmed to be safely on board, the train began its rapid departure. Inside, the tension was palpable amongst the men in suits, their faces etched with worry. One man nervously wondered about the archer's identity, a shadow of fear in his eyes. Another grimly observed that it looked like Lee Seong was getting overwhelmed, pushed back by her opponent. Just then, our boy appeared, having barely managed to catch up to the departing train. He looked at the worried faces, asking them what they thought they were doing, sitting idle. He reminded them sharply that Lee Seong wasn't fighting a desperate battle just so they could comfortably rest. The commander, his voice serious, warned that with Lee Seong now separated, something major was bound to happen. He quickly issued orders for all hunters to move up and prepare, directing them to the shield generator. Out on the tracks, Lee Seong continued her valiant struggle against the relentless archer. The archer, with a slight smile, acknowledged Lee Seong's incredible skill, recognizing her as the leader of Dangun's descendants and a top-ranked hunter. She confessed that their victory had already been decided the very moment they successfully separated Lee Seong from the train. Yu Chan-seok found himself in a tense standoff as a commander ordered his hunters to prepare for battle. A suspicious group had been spotted on the bridge ahead, and the hunters charged without hesitation. On the bridge, a group dressed in traditional attire waited, led by a mysterious woman holding a gyeonggyeom. She looked directly at our hero, then greeted him by name, revealing she knew exactly who he was. Despite orders to capture him alive, she declared her intention to kill him, dismissing any accidental death as simply, "Oh well." She attacked with her gyeonggyeom, sending out sharp, invisible sound waves. He narrowed his eyes, recognizing the unique weapon and the nature of her assault. He watched her hands move, the instrument a deadly extension of her will. Her fingers danced across the strings, weaving a deadly melody. The woman smirked, a cruel glint in her eyes as she continued her assault. Our boy braced himself, understanding the danger. He took a deep breath, preparing for the full force of her attack. A powerful shockwave erupted from her instrument, impacting everything around her. The sound waves blasted forward, tearing through the air and throwing debris. He quickly processed her method of attack, realizing she was hitting them with sonic blasts. It was annoying, he thought, but he wondered if this was the extent of her abilities. His enemies were not just her. Another man with copper bells on iron pillars stood ready. The man began to move, his dance a strange ritual. Bells jingled, creating a cacophony that intensified the sound. The dancer's movements became more frantic, the bells ringing louder. Our boy noticed the dancer's ritual, realizing it wasn't just a simple performance. He understood it was a buff skill, empowering their attacks. Another shockwave hit, so loud it could be heard even from a distance, rattling his very bones. He concluded that the impact must be from our hero himself. The woman continued to play, her performance, in his eyes, nothing short of garbage. She laughed, declaring he could never block out sound, and encouraged him to struggle until he died. He thought about her words, acknowledging that indeed he couldn't block out sound. If that was the case, he decided, he would try something different, activating a new ability, Paradox Flame. The woman reeled back, startled by the sudden shift in the battlefield. She tried to call out to her allies, but her voice wasn't coming out. She realized with growing panic that her voice was completely suppressed. She looked around, her eyes wide with shock. Our boy watched her, a faint smile playing on his lips. He had expected this. She didn't seem used to a silent battlefield, he mused, as his power held her in its grip. She wondered where he had disappeared to, thinking his trick was pathetic. Still, she told herself it was 2 against 1. If he landed a surprise attack, the other could take him out. Whoever got hit would risk death, of course, but that was part of the plan. She then looked at Lee Ha-yun, noticing his strange expression. A chilling realization dawned on her. He was the one being ambushed. The first plan, made with Seo Yeonju, was to capture our hero alive, but one of them dying was an acceptable outcome. She screamed for them to stop, seeing Lee Ha-yun bleeding heavily. She cradled Lee Ha-yun, asking him why he had intervened. She asked if that was his name, her voice filled with anguish. Seo Yeonju, the leader, had told her not to use the seal before they subdued him. But she had no other choice, she insisted, as she had caught him. Her barrier had stopped their officers and Lee Si-yoon as well. It should have been more than enough to restrain him, she believed. Suddenly, a dark, powerful aura erupted from our hero, shattering the barrier. The leader was stunned, coughing blood, unable to believe he had broken through. He had definitely shouldn't have been able to escape, she thought, her plan crumbling. Our boy stood tall, asking who gave them permission to just decide they were leaving. He looked at her, his eyes blazing, wondering if she was out of her mind. His power had already surpassed her imagination, she realized, her confidence wavering. The shield generator no longer mattered. They needed to survive, she pleaded with Lee Ha-yun. She urged Lee Ha-yun to run away, but our hero echoed her words with a menacing tone. He told Lee Ha-yun to leave the shield generator behind, then challenged them to try and run. The scene shifted to Hamburg Central Station, now a desolate wasteland. Lee Si-yoon lay injured amidst the destruction, barely conscious. She struggled to understand what was happening, her vision blurry. Our hero, now fully revealed, approached her. Our hero told her that her very existence was proof of the Korean race's superiority. She asked if he believed in the Hwanguk theory, the pseudo-historical claim of a primordial Korean empire. He simply stated that it didn't matter if he believed it, what mattered was the faith of the people who did. That faith, he explained, was what would make them join him in his grand dream. Faith, he concluded, didn't require proof, one simply had to believe. As he raised his weapon, the injured Lee Si-yoon watched with wide eyes, utterly defeated, completely unaware of the dark fate awaiting her. Yu Chan-seok found himself burdened with command, grappling with the weight of leadership in a world teetering on the brink. He reflected on the difficult choice Commander Lee Se-yoon had made, cutting off her own flesh to escape, a desperate move that left him wondering about her fate. A tense silence fell as he absorbed the grim news, his eyes reflecting the heavy responsibility suddenly placed upon him. Word came that Commander Lee Si-yoon was lost, and in her absence, provisional command of the relief train had been transferred to him, a heavy mantle to bear amidst the chaos. He was immediately thrust into brutal combat, kicking aside a masked assailant with practiced ferocity, his movements sharp and decisive. Another enemy fell before him, a blur of motion and steel as he cleared a path through the encroaching danger. His grip tightened on the hilt of his sword, a silent promise of the resolve he carried, ready to face whatever came next. He wielded his blade with grim determination, each strike aimed to protect those relying on him. Blood splattered as his sword found its mark, a testament to the brutal reality of their fight for survival. One more enemy crumpled to the ground, leaving him standing amidst the fallen, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He stood tall, a lone figure in the aftermath of the skirmish, his gaze unwavering as he stared down the path ahead. With the provisional command now his, he made a difficult decision, ordering the relief train to depart immediately, knowing the potential repercussions. He understood the choice might seem inefficient for future relations, but he had no regrets, for the train carried crucial relief supplies, a beacon of hope for many. Suddenly, a frantic voice called his name, a hunter rushing towards him with urgent news. He stood patiently, arms crossed, listening as the hunter struggled to catch his breath. The hunter finally managed to deliver the astonishing news. Commander Lee Seon had returned, against all odds. A relieved smile spread across his face. Deep down, he had known she would make it back. Lee Seon stood before them, battered and worn, but her eyes held an unyielding resolve, a testament to her tenacity. Later, in the hospital, she asked him if he was upset about the train departing without her, but he quickly assured her he had simply followed her provisional command. Her eyes, however, held a deeper question, wondering why that was the first thing he thought to address. They discussed her recent fight with the archer, a battle that had left her feeling vulnerable and outmatched. She looked away, troubled by the lingering frustration of her perceived inadequacies, a rare moment of doubt for the strong commander. She confessed her struggle to find a way forward, feeling that she had hit a wall and doubted the existence of sudden, miraculous epiphanies. A quiet moment passed as she pondered her next steps, the weight of her recent defeat still heavy on her mind. Changing the subject, she inquired about the distribution of the relief supplies, hoping for some good news. He offered a reassuring smile, informing her that everything was proceeding smoothly thanks to his efforts. He then mentioned the shield generator, which would be transported to the UK port once the relief supplies were loaded. Her eyes widened in surprise. She asked if that meant he was staying in the UK. He confirmed his intention to remain there for a while, aiming to improve his skills before heading back to Korea. A determined glint appeared in his eyes as he revealed the next step in his ambitious plan. On his return journey, he intended to challenge the Bratz Grade 1 refrigerator, Rift, a formidable challenge he announced with unwavering resolve. Her expression shifted from surprise to concern, knowing the immense danger of such a task. She warned him of the extreme difficulty of a Grade 1 Rift, even for someone as capable as him, recalling her own struggle with a similar challenge. He then revealed Han Sanga would be joining him. From her hospital bed, she declared her intention to stay and assist them, determined to contribute as much as she could. She reminded him of his grand ambition to dismantle every corrosion rift on Earth and ultimately save their world. She expressed her hope that his burning will would endure even after facing the harsh reality of a Grade 1 rift in Bratsk. He gave a slight, confident smile, acknowledging her words. He then presented a favor, showing her a spacious house, suggesting it would be ideal for training, despite its distance from the shield generator. Han Sanga stood nearby, observing their conversation with a thoughtful expression. She hummed softly, considering the proposed training location and the implications. She carried a bucket filled with vials, ready for whatever training awaited them. He smiled, holding the bucket, the vials within containing potent mana potions, like elixirs for warriors. He quickly gulped down a vial, prompting Han Sanga to ask why he drank it so fast. He explained that it was too bitter to savor. He then announced that, with the necessary preparations complete, it was time to begin their training. He presented a basket of ordinary eggs, explaining they would be the intuitive tools for their next exercise. He demonstrated holding a normal egg in one hand and channeling mana into another, showcasing the subtle energy manipulation. The mana-infused egg began to change, a dark, viscous liquid dripping from its top, a striking visual of the raw power at play. Han Sanga watched, her expression one of utter astonishment at the transformation. He revealed the mana had mixed the yolk and white of the egg, creating a stark contrast to the untouched one, explaining this was the essence of mana manipulation training. He informed him that this exercise would help improve his mana control, advising him to practice it whenever he had free time, like homework. He readily agreed. Hansanga looked at him, a subtle question in her gaze. He asked where she was heading, assuming she was off to practice the homework. He clarified that he needed to begin his actual training immediately, not just the homework. Lee Si-yun, now fully recovered and in her combat attire, reminded him that true training always commenced with real combat. Hansanga affirmed Lee Se-yun's words, pointing at him with a mischievous glint in her eye. Meanwhile, Kim Jae-heon lay strapped to a metal table, humming softly, wires connected to her head. A mana respirator covered her face, her eyes closed, kept alive by advanced technology. A scientist peered down at her, asking if she was finally awake as she stirred to consciousness. She questioned her whereabouts. He informed her she was in his laboratory, casually mentioning the effort it took to move her from the hospital. She looked at him, her eyes clouded with pain and confusion, asking why he had moved her. The scientist, from behind, seemed pleased with himself, holding a vial. He explained that he thought she might get bored staring at the hospital ceiling, a cruel twist of concern. Her eyes flashed with fury, and she rasped out a question, asking if he wanted to die. He chuckled, reminding her that she couldn't even breathe without the mana respirator, advising her not to exert herself too much. His smile widened, a chilling expression of dark glee as he held up a glowing vial. He then revealed his recent success with an experiment, directly asking Kim Jae-heon if she desired revenge. Yoo Chan-seok, a world-saving hero, continued his relentless training, pushing himself and his allies to new limits as threats loomed. 1 month had passed, and his teammate, Hansanga, was still struggling to master a specific skill, her hands fumbling with simple tasks like cracking an egg. She watched the broken shell and yolk splattered on the floor with a grimace, unable to replicate the effortless precision their leader, Yoo Chan-seok, displayed. Lee Si-yun, their stern but effective trainer, observed from a distance, her presence commanding attention even as she simply stood. Hansanga flinched, startled, as Lee Se-yun's voice cut through the air, signaling the end of her short break and a return to their rigorous regimen. She quickly acknowledged the command, knowing there was no arguing with Lee Se-yun's strict methods and unwavering focus on improvement. The small, perfectly cooked egg on the plate served as a stark reminder of her own failed attempt, a symbol of the skill she was still striving to achieve. Their journey to becoming true heroes, capable of protecting their world, was a path paved with grueling effort, demanding every ounce of their dedication. The current phase of their training involved a 2-on-1 sparring session, pitting both Hansanga and Yoo Chan-seok against the formidable Lee Si-yun. This intense regimen served a dual purpose, designed to hone their individual capabilities and strengthen their collective resolve. Yoo Chan-seok moved with practiced grace, dodging and weaving through Lee Si-yun's powerful attacks, his focus absolute in the chaotic dance of combat. The first objective of their training was clear: to push past their current limitations and emerge significantly stronger than before. Chan-seok's eyes narrowed, a silent testament to his determination as he anticipated Lee Si-yun's next move, ready to counter with precision. In a blur of motion, Hansanga was disarmed, her greatsword sent flying as Lee Si-yun's attack caught her mid-air, leaving her vulnerable. A look of stunned disbelief crossed Sanga's face. She hadn't even managed to land properly before her weapon was gone. Lee Si-yun pressed her advantage, a powerful surge of energy crackling around her as she continued her relentless assault. Chan-seok watched, observing every detail, his mind already processing the intricate movements and potential weaknesses in their combined approach. Lee Si-yun stood triumphant, her sword resting casually on her shoulder, as Sanga, now weaponless, looked up at her with a mix of frustration and awe. She acknowledged Sanga's growth, noting how much she had improved over the past month of relentless training. Still, Xian knew there was more to teach, particularly the crucial skill of retaining one's weapon in the heat of battle. Just as Lee Si-yun prepared to continue their session, an urgent emergency call blared through their comms, demanding immediate attention. Hansanga's expression shifted to one of grave concern as she listened to the urgent report coming from Dover. The caller reported a massive assault by the descendants of Dangun, a dangerous faction known for their destructive power. Adding to the gravity of the situation, an inexplicable black smoke had completely enveloped the shield generator, rendering it vulnerable. Both Chanseok and Seon exchanged serious glances, understanding the immediate threat and the urgent need for their intervention. Without hesitation, they piled into a car, speeding off towards the crisis zone, the vehicle a blur against the landscape. Han Sang-ga, clearly unnerved by Lee So-yoon's reckless driving, pleaded with her to be more careful, her voice laced with anxiety. Lee Se-yeon, unfazed, simply pointed out that she was the only one among them with a valid license, leaving them no other choice. Sang-ga let out a sigh of exasperation, realizing that safety was a secondary concern when facing such a dire emergency with their fiery driver. Suddenly, Chansok's eyes widened, a sharp intake of breath escaping him as he registered something directly in their path. The car slammed into an unseen obstacle with a violent impact, sending debris flying and shaking the vehicle to its core. The luxurious car screeched to a halt, its front end crumpled and cracked from the force of the unexpected collision. Chanseok looked back at the wreckage, his gaze fixed on the figure they had just struck, a sense of dread beginning to settle in. He quickly realized their victim was no ordinary person, the twisted form on the ground hinting at something far more sinister. The creature was a grotesque, purple-skinned being, its body unnaturally contorted, lying still amidst the shattered pavement. Then, the creature's eyes snapped open, glowing with an eerie light as it rasped, a chilling declaration, "Found you." Chansok's expression was a mixture of shock and dawning recognition, as if he knew this monstrous entity. He uttered a name, a ghost from his past resurfacing in the most terrifying way, Kim Ji-hyun. Kim Ji-hyun, now a twisted shadow of his former self, glared at Chanseok with an intensity that promised utter destruction. He spoke Chanseok's full name, his voice dripping with venom, mocking him as the target of his profound hatred. Ji-hyun's mutated body pulsed with dark energy as he recounted the immense sacrifices he had made to reach this current, horrifying state. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, the ground cracking under his immense weight, his resolve to inflict suffering absolute. The creature screamed, his words echoing with torment and vengeance, declaring that Chanseok would never comprehend the depth of his pain. Ji-hyun launched himself forward, a whirlwind of destructive power aimed squarely at Yu Chanseok, intent on tearing him limb from limb. Chanseok, gripping his weapon, understood the grave danger this transformed foe posed, preparing himself for the inevitable clash. Meanwhile, at the harbor, the situation had already deteriorated. Lee Se-yeon found herself falling through the air, overwhelmed by the attackers. A nearby man watched in horror, realizing that all the hunters stationed at the harbor had been swiftly and brutally taken out. Han Sang-ga, having split up from the others as planned, was now bound and helpless, captured by the descendants of Danggun. Two masked figures, members of the attacking faction, approached her, their intentions clearly sinister and profit-driven. They discussed the hefty ransom they expected to receive for the little lady daughter of the KY group, unaware of her true spirit. To their surprise, Sang-ga met their condescension with a defiant smirk, her eyes sparkling with an unexpected fire. The masked captors paused, momentarily stunned by her audacity, wondering if these three heroes had truly cleared the entire area by themselves. Sang-ga corrected their phrasing with a dry wit, pointing out the redundancy in calling her a little lady daughter. She offered alternative, more direct titles, suggesting KY Group Daughter or even KY Group Bitch would be more fitting. The masked figures were momentarily silenced, taken aback by her bluntness and utter lack of fear. Then, a burst of laughter erupted from them, finding her insolence amusing rather than intimidating. They scoffed, dismissing her as nothing more than a village idiot, despite her sharp retort and defiant stance. One of them admitted they had initially planned to simply collect a ransom, but her current state and attitude changed things. The masked figures moved in, their earlier amusement now replaced by a cruel intent to torment their captive. Han Sang-ga, despite her perilous situation, held her gaze firm, prepared to face whatever horrors they had in store for her. Her captors declared their new plan. They would take their time, savoring every moment of playing with her. Han Sang-ga's defiance hung in the air, a silent challenge against the overwhelming odds, her fate now uncertain amidst the chaos. With one hero facing a vengeful monster and another captured by cruel enemies, the very notion of saving their world felt more distant than ever. Our protagonist, facing overwhelming odds, knew he had to defeat 3 opponents, each possessing twice his own mana. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. Raw power wasn't the deciding factor in a true fight. It was the calm mind that could read the battle's flow. He reminded himself to remain composed even as 2 attackers lunged at him. His goal was simple: survive until Yu Chansok, his ally, could arrive. A scientist, holding a glowing vial, promised a power boost, claiming it would amplify the recipient's physical body by 7.6 times. This new strength would revitalize a body that had become nothing more than a hollow shell. The scientist explained the recipient would gain immense mana, freeing them from the respirator, but warned of severe side effects. He listed the gruesome consequences: shattered bones and twisted internal organs. Even their eyes would burn and dry out, a painful price for power. Yet, the scientist dismissed these horrors, calling it a small price for a new body. A look of pure terror filled the recipient's eye. The scientist's gaze was cold, asking if fear was holding them back. He challenged them, asking if this fear was greater than a lifetime as a cripple. The recipient's face contorted, a glowing gem appearing on their forehead as they embraced the transformation. A new, eerie resolve settled on their features. Kim Ji-hyun, now transformed, declared that a hospital room ceiling was no longer her focus. Only one image consumed her thoughts, driving her forward. She craved the sight of a miserable corpse, a symbol of her revenge. Back in the present, Kim Ji-hyun attacked the protagonist with ferocity. He skillfully blocked her punch with his spear, the force of the blow still rattling him. The two exchanged a barrage of blows, each strike carrying immense power. With a precise move, the protagonist launched Kim Ji-hyun into the air. She gasped in pain as she was sent hurtling away. She cursed, surprised by his ability to throw her so easily. She vowed to finish him the moment her feet touched the ground again. The protagonist landed gracefully, dust swirling around him. Kim Ji-hyun watched, confused, wondering what his next move would be. He stood atop his impossibly long spear, a striking image against the sky. Kim Ji-hyun stared in disbelief, realizing his spear could extend to an incredible length. He spun the spear, preparing his next attack. A flash of determination crossed his face. He blocked another of her attacks, noting her surprising strength. Her punches, he observed, were significantly more powerful than he remembered. He challenged her, questioning if her defense matched her newfound destructive force. Kim Ji-hyun was engulfed in a blinding light, mana surging around her. The protagonist unleashed his signature move, the dual orbit spear, infinite repetition. The powerful attack left Kim Ji-hyun sprawled amidst the ruins. She coughed violently, blood splattering from her lips. Exhausted and broken, she pleaded for death. The protagonist looked at her, finding something profoundly unsettling about her condition. He recalled the flashback, realizing mana, not blood, coursed through her veins, a procedure so advanced yet seemingly flawed. His eyes widened as he grasped the deeper truth: her blood was not human. He remembered his past life in a world dedicated to mana research, concluding humanity here had a primitive understanding of it. It was like watching a primitive trying to cut meat with the dull side of a knife, believing they had invented it themselves. He had seen this phenomenon countless times before. He knew exactly what it was. This was clearly a trap, a mana landmine planted by a powerful entity far beyond human capability. He wondered if Kim Ji-hyun had unknowingly entered a mana contract. A powerful entity had materialized its mana, and by accepting it, she had unwittingly agreed to a transaction. He felt a pang of concern realizing she had signed away her future without understanding the terms. His gaze hardened, a new threat now apparent. He recalled a past incident, realizing it wasn't an explosion but complete annihilation, as if something had been erased without a trace. This method was familiar to him, a devil's contract he had encountered often in another world. He worried about the powerful entity Kim Ji-hyun had contracted with, fearing devils from his past world had followed him. He paused, a heavy thought weighing on him. For now, he decided, this new, unsettling problem would have to wait. The gray-haired woman, having just arrived, stared in disbelief at the scene. She couldn't comprehend how he had managed such a feat. He had merely deflected their attacks, yet somehow, all three powerful opponents lay defeated. Our protagonist landed, celebrating his victory, just as Yu Chunseok had predicted, when a voice cut through the air. The gray-haired woman criticized his overthinking, urging him to focus solely on the fight, as they both turned to gaze at the massive shield generator. The world was a skill to be mastered, and our hero, a natural. But even the most skilled heroes faced challenges that tested their very understanding of reality. High above the world, on a platform shimmering with raw energy, stood a testament to power, the culmination of mana technology itself. It was a place where immense mana had been condensed into a tangible form, pulsing with unspoken potential. Lee Seon, her gaze sharp, observed the scene with a mix of recognition and unease. "So, this is where you guys gathered?" she asked, her voice cutting through the silent hum of power. A quiet determination settled over her face as she looked down at the expanse below. The moment was hers, a silent promise of the strength she was about to unleash. Then, in a flash of movement, Lee Seon revealed her true might, her glowing sword a beacon in the ethereal light. She was ready, a formidable force against whatever lay ahead. In the aftermath, our hero surveyed the scene of their recent battle, fallen foes scattered around. "Everyone's fine," he confirmed. But Lee Seon couldn't help but note, "You really didn't go easy on them." He simply replied that taking it easy on crazed mobs was out of the question. As the dust settled, a new challenge emerged, not of battle, but of words. Our boy pondered how he would explain the complex situation surrounding Kim Ji-hyun, a task that felt harder than the fight itself. He knew the truth was too fantastical. If he revealed everything he had discovered, the immediate question would be, "How did you know that?" And he had no honest answer they would believe. Lee Seon and Kim Ji-hyun watched him closely, their expressions a mix of patience and growing curiosity. They sensed his hesitation, the unspoken words hanging in the air between them. His real story was impossible. He had gone to another world, saved it, and returned to Earth with a reward. But Earth was a mess, and he had become a hunter out of necessity. He knew they would never believe such a tale. He racked his brain for a plausible lie, recalling some ancient, nonsensical prophecies spouted by priests in that other world. An oracle, they called it. Perfect. He decided to twist those old tales, patching them together into something new. He claimed that during his fight with Kim Ji-hyun, he had been engulfed in black smoke and heard a mysterious voice. A voice? Lee Seon echoed, her interest piqued. Kim Ji-hyun leaned forward, her eyes wide, asking, "What voice?" They were completely drawn into his fabricated narrative. He then launched into a dramatic, overly elaborate prophecy, speaking of destruction approaching and entities existing beyond the veil. He even detailed the mysterious figure, dressed in sulfur fire, holding a chalice of wormwood juice. He knew he just needed to string together enough convincing nonsense to imply there were other, more suspicious players at work. His goal was simply to shift suspicion. To his surprise, his outlandish story landed. Kim Ji-hyun muttered, "What on earth does that mean?" And Lee Se-yoon mused, "So they really exist. In this world of rifts and monsters, even Chuni-Bu-like entities felt plausible." A small, self-satisfied smirk played on his lips. He had completely made it up, yet they had bought every word. Lee Se-in and Kim Ji-hyun discussed the implications, agreeing that they couldn't dismiss these patriots as a small, isolated group. It seemed something deeper was at play among the descendants of Dangun. Our hero couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. Well, at least it worked on Lee Se-on too, he thought, pleased with the success of his deception. Kim Ji-hyun remained thoughtful, processing the implications of his story and what it meant for their current situation. He then pivoted, bringing up a new, pressing matter. The transfer market was set to open soon. He explained that hunters were only allowed to switch companies during this specific period. Kim Ji-hyun looked at him, puzzled. "Why suddenly bring that up?" she inquired, unsure of the connection to their previous conversation. He clarified that the transfer market was far more than just hunters changing affiliations. It was a grand gathering where representatives and influential figures from every hunter company came together to exchange vital information. Kim Ji-hyun's eyes widened, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. "If so," she began, grasping the strategic potential. He explained that this meant they could bring up his fabricated story there. If a hunter of Lee Seon's standing vouched for it, other hunters would find it difficult to simply dismiss. A subtle, confident smirk played on his lips. His plan was intricate, leveraging both his deception and the influence of his allies. Kim Ji-hyun, however, raised a point of concern. Not all hunters were obligated to attend the association's gathering, especially someone like Yoon Song-hyun. She predicted that Yoon Song-hyun would instead come to the UK, specifically to see our hero's face. Our boy, basking in the glow of his supposed popularity, responded with a pleased, "This popularity of mine." He mused about the possibility of Yoon Song-hyun begging for a meeting, a playful arrogance in his tone. Kim Ji-hyun quickly burst his bubble. "That won't be it," she stated flatly. "Hunter Yoon Song-hyun is already married, plus his partner is a woman." A look of mock devastation crossed his face. "Wow, really?" he cried. "I fell in love at first sight with Hunter Yoon Song-hyun. What a shame." Kim Ji-hyun looked utterly exasperated. "As if?" she retorted. "I'm obviously talking about the transfer market, not your romantic fantasies." He grimaced sheepishly, realizing his joke had fallen flat. "I can't even say anything," he admitted, defeated. He then brushed it off, a resolute glint in his eye. "Anyway, it's fine. This is my own problem anyway," he declared, taking responsibility for his upcoming challenges. A new chapter began, one that would introduce the formidable hunter guild known as Taebaek. In a dimly lit fiery chamber, a man with fiery red hair addressed someone unseen. "You must have something to say to me," he commanded, his voice laced with authority. The red-haired man, Seong Si-hun, was the imposing representative of the Taebaek Guild, his unique skill, psychokinesis, evident in the floating debris around him. Before him, Yoon Song-hyun knelt, visibly battered and defeated. "Kyuk, I'm sorry," he managed, his voice raspy. Song Si-hun looked down, his expression cold and dismissive. "You're sorry?" he questioned, clearly unimpressed by the apology. His hand crackled with power, ready to strike. "No, that's not it," Song Si-hun declared, making it clear that an apology was not what he sought. Yoon Song-hyun was violently flung against the wall, a spray of blood marking the impact. "You hook," he gasped, the force of the blow overwhelming him. Song Si-hun remained impassive. "I'm not doing this just to hear you say that," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion. He revealed his true frustration, admitting that he was sorry, but only because his rival had become more famous than anticipated, making Yoon Song-hyun's failure all the more glaring. Song Si-hun clenched his fist, his anger simmering. He worried about what people would think of Taebaek, and more importantly, what they would think of him, the master, if such a simple matter couldn't be handled properly. His fury erupted, raw and intense. With a powerful surge, he declared, "I hate hearing lame excuses." With the terrifying kwajik, he crushed something unseen, demonstrating his ruthless power and leaving no doubt about the consequences of failure. Yoon Song-hyun's eye widened in terror, the memory of his failure flashing before him. "He said he had no intention of joining Taebaek," he whispered, recalling the reason for his predicament. Song Si-hun's expression hardened. "Does his intention matter?" he asked, dismissing any notion of free will. "There are no second chances," he stated, his voice a chilling finality. He then issued a new command to his subordinates. "Make sure Yoo Chan-seok joins Taebaek during this transfer period." A new target had been set. Meanwhile, our hero and his companion were inside a lodging, looking out as a group of figures approached. "What's up with those guys?" he wondered, sensing their arrival. The scene shifted to an office within the lodging, where Yoo Chan-seok, a man with bandages covering his wounds, sat with a resolute expression. He looked up, his gaze unwavering. "I won't speak for long," he declared. "When the transfer market opens, fulfill the promise." Our hero, reviewing documents, noted that the conditions had shifted. He realized that Taebaek had never intended to negotiate in good faith. He understood that Taebaek operated differently from other hunter guilds. While others were loose alliances, Taebaek had a distinct representative structure. He knew that most hunter guilds simply comprised partner hunters who banded together to split profits. Taebaek, however, was a more centralized power. Our hero, observing the situation, realized that Taebaek's unique structure with a single representative was both its greatest strength and its most significant weakness. Yoo Chan-seok confirmed, "Right, Representative Song Si-hun is the master of Taebaek," but then he revealed a crucial detail: Song Si-hun wasn't active at all. Yoo Chan-seok pressed his point. arguing that the actions of the strong should carry weight. He questioned if an inactive hunter could even truly be called a hunter. He then delivered a biting insult, asking if Song Si-hung was merely a rich, unemployed man. Our hero, his expression hardening, warned Yu Chan-seok. "Watch your mouth," he commanded, a clear threat in his tone. Yu Chan-seok bristled, his anger flaring at the warning. "Keep flapping it carelessly," our boy continued, his voice low and dangerous, "and you'll die without a trace." He observed Yu Chan-seok's fierce loyalty to his subordinates, a trait he couldn't help but acknowledge, even in this tense standoff.